Hey family, we're live and I've got my buddy Freedom Grower on with us. Are you there? I got no sound. Let's see if we could get Rick back on here. I'm glad that you could join us, those of you in the chat. Really appreciate you being here. We're just going to be chopping it up tonight. We're just going to be chatting um, and just going over some things. I mean, I think that, having a format is great. And even whether it be an interview format or going over some of the research and information that I love to share with y'all. Um, Let me pull this up and let's make sure. Are you guys getting good audio? Are you guys getting a good feed? Is everything coming through okay? If you can respond in the chat, that would be wonderful. Because we did lose Rick because we didn't have audio. And so let me try and get him back on here. Sweet. Thank you, Dory, for answering. So yeah, we're just gonna get together and we're just gonna have a little chat tonight. I think that we did this last night on his channel, and we just chopped it up about just the time that we're in, some of the struggles that we're facing in this in this realm and in this walk. And so I think that there's so much to be said about. Yeah, no worries, Rick. I'll fill the air until you get it going, bro. I'm just sharing the fact that I think it's important for people to hear what others are going through. Um, I will just go through the chat real quick. We've got 6 people in on the live, and we've got Shoshana Rose in the chat, Dory in the chat, Salt of the Ozarks, um, and Shoshana Rose all commenting in the chat. So thank you for being active in the chat. And if you do have any questions, anytime throughout this broadcast, just put all your questions in all caps. And that way they stand out and I can distinguish them from the rest of the comments. Feel free to comment on the subject as we go through. I will be posting some of the comments as they stick out, just so that can actually kind of take a turn and you can have your input in this discussion. We're here to basically just kind of work through these things that we've been going through. Hey, Tanya, thank you for joining. James, brother, it's good to see you, man. I'm glad that you made it. It's always a blessing to have you in the chat. Um, I will say this while we're waiting for Rick. I am considering putting on a couple of moderators for the chat because I have I seem to get lost when I start trying to go through the chat when we're on a subject. It can kind of pull me off track. And so if you are interested in being a moderator in the chat, anytime we go live, please just drop me a message or shoot me an email at joe.cisneros@yahoo.com. And we'll try and get you set up as a moderator. Right now, I'd be looking to put on probably 2 mods to just kind of watch through and moderate the chat and just see if there's anything that sticks out that needs to be addressed. Or there's also, I've noticed sometimes trolls jump on, and I've been very fortunate not to have too many trolls jump in the chat. But I do know that can happen. And so we want to avoid all that. And we want to make sure that everybody's comfortable on this channel. You're free to speak your mind and share your opinions. I'm not here to try and convince you of anything. I'm just here to share my truth with you. I think that early on in my awakening, as I came to realizations about certain things, man, I was just fired up and I had this zeal to go out and tell everybody what they were doing wrong. and that's not the heart of God. Like that's the programming, the condemnation programming from the religious doctrinal systems, and just the um, even growing up, the things that you hear in secular society that cause shame and fear, and that's definitely not the spirit of God. And so, I am going to continue talking about some of the deceptions in the church, some of the ways that the Roman Catholic Church has infiltrated things, and just a lot of these deceptions that we've been faced with in this realm and in this reality. But I'm going to do it in a different manner than I did. For many of you that are new to my channel, you're fortunate. You haven't really seen a lot of the older content. I was probably um, a little more passionate in areas than I should have been. And again, just that zeal and fervor. I felt like the little brother who learned something and wanted to teach the big brother by asking him a question and then proving him wrong. And that's not what Christ did. Christ asked questions to cause people to contemplate. And so that's kind of more the style I'm moving to. Is I'm learning as I walk, as I go through this, and I hopefully, if you have been here from beginning to end, and you've seen my videos from the very start when I started learning about these different archetypes and how they all correlate, these different religious gods, deities, and even biblical characters, and how they all interchange and intertwine. And I just wanted to expose all of it, and in doing so, man, you can really crush people's beliefs. And I know that crushing produces the sweet anointing oil, right? That olive oil, that olive seed needs to be crushed in order to get that anointing oil. And so, as we're crushed in our afflictions and our troubles and our the fire of affliction tries us, then we come out refined as gold. You know what I'm saying? The potter, the potter and the clay. Uh, um, we are fashioned and formed into something beautiful that can not only retain light, but that can reveal light. And it comes through those cracks. You think about a vessel being dropped on the ground and the way that it might shatter, right? And you pick it up and you try to glue it together. I remember when I was a kid, I broke a lamp and I tried to glue it together, and I thought, man, that looks so awesome. But then when my parents got home and they seen that there were cracks in it, and that was one of the things that was pointed out. Look, you can see there's light coming through from the other side of the lamp because there's so many cracks, right? Well, that's the brokenness that we go through. And in that brokenness, as the pieces are put together, that master potter has a plan that he's not leaving you broken with cracks that are going to be jagged and cut. He's fashioning that clay so that those jars have a perfect curved line, just like the waveform that creates this reality. And that perfect curved line can go vertical, it can go horizontal, it can even go diagonally. But the key is that light shines through those cracks. And so remembering that in our brokenness, it produces that anointing oil is huge. And that's why I do what I do. And I know that's why my brother Rick does what he does. It looks like he's back on. So I'm going to add him to the team. What's up, brother?
Oh, this is the strangest stuff ever, man. It just makes absolutely no sense other than something doesn't want us to talk right now.
Yeah.
That's all I could think, you know?
Or,
nothing is working together. All my mic stopped working. I'm having to talk through the mic in this while using the camera on my computer. That's the only configuration I could get to work right now. How's the audio coming in? Are we all right?
Great. I think anybody in the chat having any issues with the audio for Rick?
Because usually I'd have headphones on, so I don't know if it's playing back through here, and if
No, I'm hearing everything perfect, brother.
Sweet.
Yeah. So I was just sharing with the people while you were getting your stuff ironed out, man, that everybody is going through a breaking right now, man. Don't I think John put it best. Don't find it strange when these fiery trials, which are to try you, spring up. Man, I've seen it just so definite and so obvious. And as we were talking before we jumped on the stream, man, it seems to be like something going on with those that are waking up kind of before the rest of the people in the collective, those that have been on this journey for a while of doing that important work of cleansing the chakras and meditating and even if that isn't what their goal is, just the changes they're making in their life are achieving those
Totally.
changes and those cleansings and those purges and so man, I don't know, man. Do you want to share a little bit about some of the recent things you've been going through with this purging and this breaking of the spirit, man? Because that's really what I see in it, is that it's a breaking of the spirit, bro. Like,
Yeah. Dude, first, thank you for having me on, brother. I really appreciate it. Hello to everybody in the chat. I see James, Low Miller, and Dory, and Shoshana in there, and Salt of the Ozarks. What's up, family? I just want to say, in my own journey, I remember back in 2007, 2008, praying out to the Most High, begging to have wisdom, knowledge, to understand, and to be enlightened, to basically have all knowledge. I was tired of being duped. And what's funny is you ask for these things, but you don't realize what it takes to be in a position to receive those things. And so as the Most High starts putting you through those fiery trials to refine you and prepare you to be able to hold that type of wisdom, you start to say, oh no, I don't, what the heck is going on? Well, that's what's happening right now. Everything is being burned off. We're getting what we asked for. Those of us that are seeking, that want the truth, we're finding the truth. And everything is in perfect timing of the Most High. So there's an element of trust. That's where I do believe faith comes in. We have to seek inside for that peace, that the only place where peace actually resides, find that and then bring it back out into this world. And if we're to try to just hold the peace and keep it for ourselves, we won't be able to hold on to it. We have to have a cup that's overflowing. So you have to go out and offer it freely, that same gift that Christ offered to you freely, and you're going to be persecuted for it. And you're going to have people come against you, and there's going to be challenges as a result of that. And it's going to help you find out who you are. Every one of those challenges is going to be something that's going to reveal either a falsehood in your identity, something that you're holding on to that's holding you back, that's a foothold or stumbling block. And if we look at it as opportunities to know the truth and to see the truth, I think you'll see every single bit of this purging and detoxifying and just ramping up of all the maybe physical ailments you're feeling. I know I'm dealing with that right now. You're dealing with that. I know a lot of people, physical manifestations left and right. And we talked about that earlier. That's just spiritual energy locked up, needing to be released. And so I had one of these just amazing releases the other day where a good friend of mine helped me with the meditation. Her name's Heidi. She's in the Discord a lot. And just putting your dominant hand on your belly, resting it right there, putting the other hand on your third eye, and just breathing in peace and breathing out all the stresses and negative energy. And I started doing that over and over again, and eventually came to a place where just a wall broke loose, man. And I just gushed in tears, and it was uncontrollable, just complete, utter detox, spiritual detox, and I knew what was happening. When it was happening, it was joyful, and it was like bliss to have that. It was like an exorcism, man, and a demonic energy coming out of you or something. And don't be afraid if you feel that stuff coming on right now. Go with it. Let it ride, See the truth for what it is. And if you see demons in yourself and your meditations, and you see things that scare you and haunt you, don't run away from it. Go in and do that inner work. This is the time we need to face and confront those things. Why are we seeing that? Why are those things there? Why do we have thoughts that we don't condone floating around in our kingdom weeds that we need to pull out. Why are we allowing those to take root and grow when we're the stewards of this kingdom, and we need to be present in it, be sober minded as we go through this process and look at where's our power? Where's our power at? Every second, every moment, every conversation. And because anything that can bait us into taking our power is going to do that, because that's really the accuser and the enemy's job. And so the weapons get more fierce, the darts get sharper, the arrows get more refined. Everything that the enemy is doing is ramping up and giving you your greatest challenge. But I think perspective is what we miss, because our identity is dying. Everything we've known and we've been programmed to love and cherish, we found is all just changing and impermanent. And so just the mere fact that our identity was placed there means we have to face a death, because anything that has a beginning has an end. And so facing that is traumatic and heartbreaking in some sense. Because especially if you don't know what's happening and you don't understand who you are, then you'll just see it as a death. Some people are going through that. They don't see their light yet. All they see is something dying, and their mind is reacting to that, and it's in survival mode, and it's saying, you got to do something. We got to exist. I need to justify myself. Sorry, bro. I could just ramble on and on. Stop.
No, that's why I have you on here, brother, because I think that that's one of the things that I just glean, man, from your talks when you jump on. And it's not like, I know you got your notes on points that you want to touch on, but it's not like a lot of other YouTubers, have a set schedule and an agenda. A lot of times I know what I'm supposed to talk about, but I just kind of go like you. I got bullet points and just kind of leave it unscripted. But I think that there's a lot to be said about somebody just sharing their heart, bro. And just even in that, in what you said, it really connected some dots for me with what I'm going through right now. Like I said, we've talked already, and we've already had some dots connected between both of us. But just in that what you might call just rambling or ranting, no, dude, that's feeding the spirit. And I know that the viewers would agree with me, man. That's feeding the spirit, and that's one thing that I love. And you can discern in somebody that that flow of the anointing. Okay, I'll just put it that way, because there is, and we've talked about this as well in private, is when you have that connection and you actually feel the connection with source, like you visualize this cord, right? Just running somewhere, attaching you to the heavenly, to source, to the ether. And you're getting these downloads, and it's almost as if there's a separation, right? There's times when you're getting downloads and you have to sit in silence and you have to try to decipher them. But then there's times like when you're in the zone, when you're in the spirit, when you've gone through one of these breakings, when you come through, and by the way, I see this in you right now. You're glowing. You look younger. Your eyes, for a minute there, a couple of weeks ago, dude, you had some bags and you look like pretty stressed. You could see the lines on your forehead. Right now, dude, you look young as fuck. Sorry for the F-bomb family, but you look young. You look regenerated, bro. And
I still got bags. I haven't been sleeping. But it's not a bad thing. It's just a cycle I'm in. I haven't been sleeping.
That maybe touch on that for a minute, bro, because I think that's.
I want to hit on Salt of the Ozarks though before we go off of that.
Yes, please do. That's why I posted it. I'm gonna let you just answer that right there.
Yeah, it was a relief. Everything that I did up until the point I came to that realization was predicated on the Word of God being the inerrant, infallible Word of God, primarily the KJV, but then I started drifting from that and going, well, maybe some of these other versions have efficacy. But I was in constant turmoil in my mind over verses like, happy is the man who smashes the heads of thine enemy's child on the rocks. And the stories of God sending his people into rape and pillage and take all the resources and kill every last human animal. And so did not line up to me with love. But I had always had it in my mind that all these prophecies coming true and everything that, if you've read books like from Lou Strobel on the case for Christ, I mean, I did my research. I wanted to have a well-rounded understanding of all the viewpoints. So I read the contrarian views as well as, all the apologists. And I had confirmed in my heart that this book and the way that it was being relayed to me in the doctrines of man was true. But I was pissed at God because inside I was saying, you're a jealous, murdering God that commands his people to do the exact things you tell them not to. And you are playing games with your creation in a way that does not show empathy and love. And so I am the one expected to hold that in my heart, the fruits of the Spirit, love, long suffering, joy, peace, all these things. But yet the deity that I'm worshiping outside of me does not embody those principles. So when I actually began to understand why that was happening, that there was a truth and a lie there that needed to be observed, it was tremendous. It was tremendously empowering and a huge sense of relief, because it was like, oh wow, the universe is not totally fucked up. It actually does make sense. What didn't make sense is the programming that was placed on me. So that was my experience with that.
And James says it's not very comforting being slapped upside the head. It's definitely a double-edged sword. The more we know, the more responsibility upon us. Armor is essential. Authority we have. Praise him. And we talked about that a little bit, how, it is one of those things where it says in scripture that during the apocalypse, this unveiling, the revelation, right? It's going to be a great and terrible day of the Lord. It's going to be great for some, and it's going to be terrible for others. And it's weird because the ones that it's going to be terrible for are not suffering right now. They're the ones that are skating right through this whole shift and everything without even a realization that there's a shift happening. And that's why when this thing is complete and all of it comes down on them like a ton of bricks, it's going to be a terrible day of the Lord for them. But those of us that have been doing this work and going through this process willingly, mind you, like, dude, I know that a lot of the times that we've talked, we both have this understanding that we have the free will to say, fuck this, I don't want this, I'm not going to do it. I can definitely plug back in, go back to a 9 to 5 and just pay my taxes and be a good little servant of the God of this world. But once you taste that freedom from, you can't, bro, you can't. And so
you can't fake that shit. It would be I couldn't even imagine. I mean, would I do what I had to do, I guess, to feed my child if I saw them starving? I guess you do what you have to do in the moment, but I mean, yeah, it's like I still wouldn't be who they want me to be. You can't, Nothing can ever be the same once you've seen the truth. It really can't, and then you worry about that after you see the truth, that, oh, now I've seen this. What if I can't see it again? What you only won't be able to see it again through your free will, your choice, to dumb back down or close back down. Could you close your eye again if you want to? Absolutely. You could go just slam yourself full of all kinds of different chemicals and all the poisons available in this society to create more denseness inside, if that's the direction you're wanting to go. But I think most people are actually in a state of apathy where, and that's where, when I found out about these truths, that I did get angry, was for relatives and loved ones. They're not going to look at things. They're not, well, I shouldn't limit anyone. And the Most High can do anything within the Most High will, but I see a lot of people that don't have any desire to even contemplate sacred texts and scriptures and relevancy and is there truth or is there lack of truth. They've just taken the doctrine that's been placed on them and what they were programmed and told to think, and they're fine with that. And if you say anything contrary, they say, what's the meaning in that? Why should I bother with that?
Right.
What's the big deal, man? It's like, I like my Episcopalian, Pentecostal, Baptist mindset. And, you're the one who doesn't have peace, freedom. You're the one who's having constipation problems right now and can't sleep at night. And, has loneliness issues and all these. And then the enemy comes in and starts to accuse you, right? That's why I think it's careful. I think we always need to be conscious with what we're saying,
Totally.
We don't want to just go act like we have the answer for someone, or we know what they need on their journey, or where they're necessarily at that exact moment. All we know is they need love. Every single person needs love and the space to change and the acceptance to find themselves on their journey the way they're uniquely going through to get to their back to source.
Right.
And I just want to be a stumbling block to that. So, all these different denominations, man, they wrapped me up in some serious condemnation. And that has been a big part of my journey, is just unindoctrinating, reverse engineering the brain and the mind, emptying all that, which is not just as easy necessarily as saying, oh, I'm over it, I'm done. It's like,
but that's walking the same path as Christ, though, bro. I mean, he went into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. And I mean, I can get into all of the metaphorical and allegorical meanings behind the number of the 40 and the things that he did, and understanding that he was really going through his own personal mystery school. Understanding the things that we talk about regarding how this realm is malleable and you can actually alter it on the physical level, with your heart and mind, and the process of what many people consider magic or I asked a brother the other day, well, why did Christ spit in the dirt and perform this ritual, right? Wouldn't that be considered witchcraft today? I mean, documentations of Christ using wands, of Moses using wands, for the death of Lazarus. Some of the greatest detailed mosaics of the raising of Lazarus from the dead is Jesus using a wand to raise him from the dead. You know what I'm saying?
That big time.
And so a lot of that is like, all right. I mean, and it broke me too. Like, well, Christ, what? And it was that whole thing about having every thought form destroyed, including the thought and image that you have of the Savior.
Of course.
And so,
well, because what is the image you have? You're not supposed to have any graven image, but what is the image we all hold? It's going to be some picture that was shown to us in a Bible. It's going to be something that was on the front of the church, or when you walked in, it was behind the altar. It's a big cross and Jesus hanging there, and they made all these nativity scenes, and so it was all about a visual. It was always about an outward thing. This is what it looked like. This is how it happened that night in Bethlehem, and we do it every year just to remind you this is exactly what happened, and this is exactly how it went down. And if you think anything else, you're a complete nutcase, because we've done it every year, you dumbass. It's like, this is how it went.
It's like with Christ, man, the one that is not with the masses, the one that's not in that wide path that leads to the gate of destruction, is the one that's ridiculed. And that's I mean, shit, doesn't scripture say that Jesus' own family went out to seize him because they thought he was mad? You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is something that Shoshana Rose says deprogramming is tough. And I just want to touch on this. James Lowmiller says, just heard where that saying came from. The writing is on the wall. It's in the Bible. And that is actually true. It's about the writing of the finger appearing. and writing on the wall when Daniel had to decipher the dream, right? And it said mene tekel of harshin. And so it's regarding, like the writing on the wall is there for each and every one of us to understand that we have these two paths that we can take, and it can branch off into many paths, just like you see a tree that has a strong trunk, and it comes up and splits off into two main trunks, and each one has its various branches, but they're all connected to the same tree, and they're all rooted in the same earth. And so that's basically what happens is we're given this choice, just like Nebuchadnezzar was, right? Just like even, it was Nebuchadnezzar, right? He was made to be in the field and eat the grass of the fields like a beast, and his hair grew and his nails grew like talons, and so that's a picture of what will happen. We turn into the beast when we move away from the writing that's on the wall. You know what I'm saying? We're giving it to us. We were talking about this, brother. Why do we suffer ourselves? And you made a really good point. So I want you to touch on that, if you will. Why do we suffer ourselves sometimes when we're like, fuck, we know what we're supposed to be doing, man? It's like that Paul saying, like, man, this wretched man that I am, I do the things that I don't want to do, and the things that I know I should do, I'm not doing. Like,
right.
Where does
Why
that
do we sin?
man?
Why do we sin? The Bible, it says that if you come to know the truth, or if you continue in your sin, you've actually never seen or known God. That's actually the verse I'm trying to reference here. And I could tell you where that is if I had my Bible, because I have it written in the front. But that one always really messed with me, because so you're telling me if I know God, if I've seen or known God ever even had a glimpse, I would not have any sin in me. I would never sin. Now, there's a lot of other verses that you could say contradict that or have different perspectives on it. But this is why we sin, is because we need to find the part of us that has no sin. And so we create the pain, and we create enough of it to cause us to go inside. And the pain will not stop until we go to the truth. So those energy blocks build up. Once we go to the truth, there's an opportunity for what I had the other day, which is that energy release, and it can just pour out. But if you're wondering why you continue to do something, like Paul said, why do I do what I don't want to do? And what I do want to do, I don't do. But the things that I don't want to do, I continue to do. And it's like, are you a psychopath? Are you crazy? No, you're willing to die for your truth. You're willing to go the distance. And that's what that means is this is playing out. The reason the pain is increasing is you haven't had enough to focus where you need to focus, which is it's pointing you back inwards. And so it's all about dying before you die. It really is. I mean, and then it's also about finding out what death is that we were lied to, It's not the scary boogeyman thing that they have framed it up to, because they want us to do anything but look at that. They want us to be so afraid of it and so fear-stricken that we just spend our life avoiding it and doing anything we can to numb ourselves or distract ourselves or just run in routines so that we don't have to look at where we're headed and where we came from. But you know where I'm coming from on this, that this is really, when we came into this realm, it was our first death, or it was maybe not if you look at it from a multiple life standpoint, but that was a separation from source. So, I mean, if you want to think of something painful, imagine that. Imagine when we forgot who we were, how freaking that, and then you come out of the womb and you're crying, oh God, and then they slam you with the shot and they stick stuff in your eyes and you're like, ah! I mean, everybody comes in with post-traumatic stress syndrome. Nobody gets by without a healthy dose of that on day one, especially if you're born in the States.
Yeah, I had a brother that recently he's woken up to these things before he had his first child. So they had a home birth and did it in a pool with water in their living room and all kinds of stuff. No vaccines. It was a beautiful thing, but But you know, I think that ties in with this question from Debbie: what really is sin? Like,
It's
sin
missing
is
the
just
mark.
missing the mark. It is missing the mark, and what we
We
all
said it
miss
at
the
the
mark.
same
Right?
time.
Dude, this is why I think people think I'm fucking nuts, because I will say, I think we're the fallen. I think we're I think we're God and the demons. Because here's the thing: when you start getting into etymology and you start looking at root words of the original languages, and even past beyond the Phoenician language, the phony language that they took and ripped off and put upside down and backwards, right, to make these sigils to put you in bondage, and literally under a contract, a legalese contract with the language you speak verbatim. And so the thing with that is, you study in the Bible and you go to the concordance and you look at what I am is, the
Yeah.
tetragrammaton, that's in the root etymology, it means to fall or to exist or to become. And so you look at those three: to fall, to exist, or to become. That's the I am.
Yeah.
All right. And then it's rooted in the word nephal, I believe. And so here's the thing: if man came and fell and then existed in this realm and is becoming light in the image of God, then we are the I am. And who was the ones that fell on Mount Hermon? It was the Nephilim, or not the Nephilim, but the archons. And so are we fragments? Are we fragmented aspects of those souls that filled the archons, the giants, the Nephilim, all of the ones that came before us, our ancestors? Are we the ones that were fragmented out and made to stay in this pit until we came to the wisdom and knowledge and the understanding of God in us, and the fact that we aren't separate from source, and that we aren't our own singular creators, but that we are collectively creators, given the inheritance of the neutron, our father, right? The one that's in the neutral position of not judging, the one that causes the oscillation rates of the protons and the electrons that form this platonic solid realm, right? And so we are that. We are all three. We are the Trinity. We are the triune, because we have that neutron, the neutral, the father. We have the electron, the force, right? And the proton is the vibration. And so we are that. We are the atom. We are all is atum. All is atom. Adama. We are the Adama race.
We're the light in the dark, and we're also the space that holds that light in the dark. We're beyond that. But the I am, it's without the I, there's no perspective for anything. And that I is that universal consciousness. I came first, right? That's why it's I am. M being the light in the darkness, I being what allows the M to exist. But the I is the perspective that allows any of it to have meaning.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And that is in us. That is in us. And that, to know that and to see that, is the most comforting, beautiful thing that you could ever acknowledge. I am, though, people say it all day long. So in the society, we're saying, oh, I am sleepy. I am hungry. I am going to go skydiving today or whatever. Or I am sick. I'm feeling shitty. And we're claiming all these truths all day with our I am. So I am, if you think about it, we've been programmed to look at I am as a statement that needs completing. It needs something added to it. I am is not good enough by itself. But I am is the most complete statement you could ever make. It's everything. So when we're saying I am, all these spells, it's one of the most powerful spells that we're casting. And the more we get conscious of the power, whether knowingly or unknowingly, how we're using that great I am source and power in us, I am healthy. I am happy. I am filled with joy. My cup is overflowing. I am abundance in a world of self-lack. I am the light of the world. I am the Christ. People don't want to claim that. They're afraid to. It's a huge amount of responsibility to step into, because you will be attacked for saying that. But I don't know how to be authentic and truthful with anyone to say anything other than that. I am.
Yeah, there you go, man. And I just want to address this question real quick. Tanya asked, I understand you were a pastor, Albert. I thought you referred to Christos often as in the chrism. Am I mistaken? No, you're not mistaken. In fact, I believe that Christ had the rising of the Christos, and that's what Christ actually means. Christ actually means the anointed. That's Christ was not his name. Jesus Christ was not his name. In fact, we're told in scripture that we would have one called Emmanuel, God with us, right? And so Yeshua, understanding that his name may have had some connotations towards Joshua, right?
Yehoshua, Yehoshua HaMashiach.
Yahushua,
Yeah.
yes. But we have to bring it back to the fact that this was a man who was God also. But he showed us that, yes, he was the first fruits that tore the veil, but he tore the veil so he could show us that we are him, that he is us, that we have the Christos in us. That's why he said we have to take up our cross daily and follow him. One of these nights I don't have the screen share set up tonight, but I'll put up the I believe it's called the superior brachium, and it's got, in the cerebrum, it looks like a man being crucified. But on the top, instead of a man's head, it's the pineal, and the pineal is in the shape of a bull. It looks like the head of a cow with horns that come up. And
Wow.
so that space in between the horns is where you take the narrow way and join the left and the right brain, making both eyes, if thine eyes become one, then your body will be filled with light. And so when your two eyes, which control the left and the right brain, which is the masculine and the feminine, the creative and the analytic, when those two are joined together and you die to self, when you crucify that which is the judgment, that voice that fights inside of you back and forth, that makes the physical and the spiritual separate, that's when both eyes become one. When you see through that third eye, through the pineal, right? And the chrism it rises. And so it's the whole story about the cerebral juice, the pituitary emissions, the pineal emissions, and the way the claustrum.
Real eye. You actually only have one eye. I mean, it wouldn't.
Yeah, because they're all connected.
Yang, say that again. I didn't.
Yeah, because they are literally all connected.
Yeah, but it is a literal eye, and it is how you see your truth, and it's a better view of the truth than anything you'll ever see with these two eyes, because these two are divided and they're stuck in two paradigms. So with a single eye, you can see the truth for what it is, that you can see it's one, and that we're all interconnected, and that there is actually no division. It's all an illusion that is there to show us who we are, to give meaning to who we are. Because if you don't have the contrast and the perspective of self-lack or lack of who you are, then you can't have appreciation for who you are. I mean, it's really as simple as that light and dark scenario. All things come back to a simple truth that we can acknowledge in us. It's not for scholars and the super smart, wizardry types of this world. It's for layman, simple-minded people like myself, common folk, as I said the other day. What do us common folk do? Because, I had never had a degree, man, and I flunked out of high school. I had terrible grades, and I was told I was an idiot, and no one taught me, because I was in a culture where I was one of two so-called white boys growing up all the way till 5th grade, and it was about learning the island culture. But beyond that, I came to the States. I had a 1st grade education going into 5th grade, 6th grade. Into 5th grade year, they realized, oh, this guy can't read or write. He doesn't even know how to multiply. So, I mean, if you have to be smart to have the truth, I'll never get it. But
But what does the
the truth
scripture say?
makes the
Foolish to
the
shame
foolish
the
things
wise.
of the world that confound the wise.
And I
So
mean, shit, he used
thank
a
God
donkey.
for that, you know.
He used a donkey, and it looks like when I see him using me, I'm like, damn, he's nothing new under the sun. He's using another jackass. I
Exactly.
wanted to touch on this a
And that
couple of
keeps you
comments.
humble too, right? Because you know you're
Oh,
the least deserving. You're like, shit, I wasn't even. Um, I'm the least among us. The last one that should have been picked.
totally, totally. I want to touch on a couple of comments because this brother, um, he goes by Angry Catfish. I got him on Facebook. I believe his name is Eric Briggs, and this brother has some amazing,
He
amazing
does.
research,
I
and he
just
gets a lot
had a
of
few
flack.
videos today.
Yeah, dude, he gets a lot of flack, and even he and I don't, agree 100% on things, but I think we do more than either one of us realize because he even mentions this. Tom is torrid. They aren't three components.
Yeah.
Now they are getting closer to God. They want us to understand 7 billion torids inside a torid emitting shell. That is 100% correct. I agree with you, Eric. The fact that here's the thing is that magnet does have three parts. It has the neutral and it has the positive and the negative. And so there's the propulsion energy, there's the attraction energy, and then there's the neutral, right? And I was even sharing with a friend, this is how you overcome these things is you look at the horseshoe magnet, right? And you've got your positive and negative poles, and you've got your neutral in the center. And so when you rise above those things, again, talking about the two eyes and making them one, and your light being filled with light, your body being filled with light, when you rise above those things and you stand in that place of neutrality, the neutron, then you can not only see everything clearly, but then the place of the neutron, that is what controls the oscillation rate of the positive and negative. So when you're seated in that place on high on the throne, that is the right hand of the Father, then you have control of that torrid because you are 100% correct, brother. It is a torrid. It is a torrid field that is an electromagnetic piezoelectric, like that. It has all of these components, and that's where you are correct in that they are one, but these components make one, and that's where the triunity comes in. That shows us that we are the Trinity, that we are the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, because we are made in His image. And my brother and I were touching on that. I think we touched on it last night, or maybe I touched on it today with David.
You
But
did.
that we are the celestial and the terrestrial. That's where
The
we were.
water is even just gas, right? You know, it's
Yeah.
two gases. Everything is just everything's actually one because it's all just ether.
Yes, it's all ether, and
It's
it
all
all.
ether. So are
It's
you an
all.
atomist or are you ether? Because really, it's all an illusion of separation. All the shapes, all the forms.
Well,
That's
that's where
the most just mind blowing thing of everything is nothing is actually everything, and everything is actually nothing.
because it's subatomic particles. It's subatomical. It's literally nothing. Just like the space in between the neural pathways in our brain. That
Yeah.
space has been measured by scientists recently, and I don't get all of the technology, but they measured the space in between the neural connections in our brain, and that space is said to be an infinite space. How in the hell can you have an infinite space inside of this little nutshell? You know what I'm saying? Like, how can you have an infinite space? And in that infinite space is where consciousness resides and causes the biophotonic flashes of light that create the new synapses that causes a new neural highway to bring in a new understanding and make your body filled with light. And so I love this brother Eric, man. And I just wanted to touch on that because I think that that's one thing where we miss a lot is we get caught up in these things. Like I was caught up on the torrid and having this image of it being one torus field, but then I seen this picture of their best representation of an atom, an actual atom, and I'll try and find it when I give you the floor. That way I can post it. But it looks like two donuts stacked on top of each other. So these torids are actually almost double with that plane of inertia splitting them. And so
Yeah.
to think about that's what's filling our bodies, 7 octillion atoms, 7 octillion atoms, which, like you pointed on, are eternal, come from the ether. They were there before the creation of anything, before anything existed, when the Spirit of God hovered over the deep, man, that subatomic particle was there, that is in you, that makes up your physical body, that makes up your spirit, that makes up everything in between the spirit and the physical. And here's the amazing thing. This is why I love Eric's research, bro, is that he totally gets it, that we have that power of those billions and billions of magnets that are in our body. We have that power, and the time is soon that we're going to be able to control that power. And so I just wanted to touch on that, and share that even though sometimes it seems like some things don't correlate or match up, man, they actually do. All things are connected, and yeah, it's just one of those things where we really got to glean from each other, man. I glean so much from Eric, and his research has showed me a lot in the very research that I do, and it's actually confirmed a lot of things that I was really in question about regarding the repulsion energy and attraction energy, and all of those things in the quantum physics aspects of these things. And so
I
and
see
so
it
he
all in
said,
sacred geometry. When you start talking about the toroidal fields, in my mind's eye, I just start seeing all the different paisley type formations that you get in a psychedelic visual. That's what all that is to me, man. It's just like sacred geometry that's just ever expanding, ever interconnected, beautiful formations. And then the thing you guys touched on with the water, I think is so important. When you take showers and program in the water, dude, because I do these cold showers, and that's like another deep game key hack to interacting with the water every morning. I use the cold therapy as a way to challenge the body, bring it into a fight or flight mode where its natural immune response kicks in, and then speak to water. It's proven. Science has already shown it. It's not like voodoo guru. See, a lot of this stuff now, science has proven. And I loved about your guest earlier, Hopi Evolve, how he hit on that, because he's obviously a guy that has a little bit of a science background and has an understanding of all that. It all connects dots now. We don't have to sit there and settle with just bullshit that doesn't make any sense. That, if it doesn't make sense, go back to the drawing board, because it's not a truth. All these things can be confirmed inside of you first, but then also outside of you. The same reflection should line up.
definitely.
I doubt anything can prove in God's law of physics. I had to prove I could get that power, and tried with intent, and met Mom and the Creator in doing so. It just gets so dark, Joe. There's places where it can feel so lonely. And when you're going through your refining process and you're having a physical pain manifestation, so you start second guessing. Maybe you're in a place of self-blame where you intuitively know you brought this on yourself, but you don't understand why. So you're condemning yourself for it. And you're saying, I'm terrible and I'm an awful person, and I'm not worth anything, and I can't even believe I did this to myself, and I don't even deserve God. I deserve hell. These are the kind of things in the depths of your despair that can start running through your mind. And I would just encourage anyone that's going through that, if you're going through that contrast is going to make the truth so much more beautiful when you have the opportunity to come back into that light again or see it for the first time. Because I know people are in cycles. Some of them have seen the truth, and yet they're being refined again. They're being challenged again. They're going, I don't understand. I've seen this truth, but yet now I'm suffering. I'm suffering more. Mm-hmm. There's just more work to be done. There's more stuff that has to be released. There's more stuff you're attached to. There's things that you're unaware of at your higher consciousness. Your higher self is putting you to task and burning everything. Nothing is not going to be burned by this light. The light will consume everything. Nothing will be left except the truth. And so just remnant of the lie that you're holding on to, or that's a residual left in this body, however painful of a process it is, you asked for this, and you will be refined to perfection, and you will get your light body. And the Most High is not going to forsake you. He's going to finish the great work that he started in you.
Dude, we were talking about how we see things, right? Even with eyes open.
Yeah.
And I just seen that dot on your forehead again. A freaking blinding light when you were saying that. And it really gave me this vision. Like, what if that light that burns everything away comes from the light body? What if these shells are actually, you know, we're expecting this grand solar flash? And I've been touching on how all of these shifts, these cosmic shifts and everything are happening because cosmically we're coming back in line. The universes that we have and create in our bodies, the black holes, like that's what I love about Catfish's research. You know, he just gets it. Like we have black holes. We can create black holes. We have universes.
We are a black hole.
We are black holes.
That's
exactly.
The dark matter womb. That's what we came out of. Your
yes.
alma mater that you came out of was the nothingness in your alma mater that brought you into the somethingness, I guess they want to call it.
And so as I've seen the shifting of the planetary alignments happening in the body and the chakras, and actually, you know, when this awakening first started happening, I had this image in my mind that this is happening to people's bodies because of the cosmic shifts. But now the further and further I get into the spiritual aspect of the quantum physics, I see how the shifts are happening cosmically because we're shifting inside. This isn't affecting us. We're affecting the cosmos, right? With this quantum consciousness that we're receiving. And so as we're doing that, when we have these visions of this planet or meteor or a solar flash happening and lighting the world on fire and burning away all the chaff, is that only happening because that's what's going to happen inside? And our light bodies are going to have a flash of light that eventually burn away everything, including this skin and this flesh, leaving only that crystallate structure. Like, I don't know. That's just, I know it sounds crazy, but that's the vision that I just had when you were talking about those things. So
makes a lot of sense to me. Makes a lot of sense to me. I think that it's anybody's guess how that all plays out from a physical manifestation, but I think we're seeing spiritually how it plays out right now. And that all is the snake eating the tail. Whatever happens in this kingdom is going to manifest out here. That's why I'm so encouraged, because I hear people like Hopi Evolve and you and all these messages of truth coming forward, and people are waking up to the power that they have inside of them. Mm-hmm. And collectively, what Hopi was saying about how we believe, collectively, if we're saying it's flat or it's round, I know people don't want to hear that. That one was a controversial thing to say, but I just lit up with like tickling light inside of me going, yeah, because it's like, it's so true, man. You know, if we're all, imagine the power if we all collectively believe in something, what that does. Yeah. We're so divided, we never have the opportunity to see that kind of stuff, except for everybody believes that we're missing something.
Right.
Everybody believes that we're not good enough the way God made us. We need something else to make us right.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, imagine when that stops.
Because we do have every inheritance, man. I mean, that's the thing. We've been given it, and that's something I used to teach my kids in youth group when I was in the pastorate. It was like, you think that you have to attain the spirit, right? Even in the doctrines in this very church, sometimes you get the impression that you have to do something to gain a greater anointing of the Spirit. Oh, come, Holy Spirit, fill this place, fill me.
I'm not praying hard enough.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
God, I need to get down on the altar in front of everybody, all my peers, and weep and cry with gnashing of teeth and let them know I am so broken, I am so awful, and why am I not getting this, thing that everybody else says they have? Is everybody else faking it? Or it's just God doesn't love me? I'm the only one that this message is not for. There's 200 people in church today, and they're all praying and they're singing, their hands are up, and I'm telling the pastor, it's like I repented, I prayed, I'm saved, but I'm struggling. I don't. It is so beautiful to know that the reason my internal compass continued to question and was continuing to look for authentic truth was because that all the promises that Christ had for you and me, brother, when he said that we could have no condemnation, that we could be free indeed, that greater things would we do.
Greater things.
We were meant to experience it and receive it now. We're to walk in that. And you have 1,000 denominations and all these different structures convincing you that, no, that's for later. Nah, if you say that you have that, you're full of it. Everybody's walking around with their sin. There's nobody free here. That's for when you get to heaven. Well, where's heaven? This place with gold streets out here. I don't know, man. Like, do I care if my heaven has gold streets or not? It's a material thing to me. I was thinking about that the other day. Like, why do I give I just don't want people to be starving. I don't want people to be depressed and suicidal and hating their life and feeling that the imminent death is near and we're going to pay for everything we've done and it's all destruction and and that's where most people are at right now. I don't want gold streets, man. I want free minds, no condemnation, no self-lack. The church never offered that to me, and they never explained to me how to get it. And I went to as many as I could go, as I could tolerate, as I could stomach, before it was like, oh, this is getting unhealthy, because I've heard this so many times and it's so bullshit, and nobody wants to have an honest discussion. Because the second you start asking real questions, that's when the conversation ends, in general. Exactly. I had one pastor who didn't do that to me, but he still wasn't. He said my questions were based in New Age and, really misled, but that he was glad I was seeking. That was the most positive thing I got from a pastor when I started asking, why does it say God tempted Abraham, but then says that he never tempts any man? Why does it, all these different perceived contradictions?
Right. And I think that there's a lot to be said about that, man, especially the streets of gold, right? I think that was really given to us as an allegory to show us that shit ain't gonna matter in the kingdom. Like, I trample on it. I walk on this gold. I'll let my donkey take a shit on it while I'm walking him up the street,
It's irrelevant.
Exactly. But in the church, we have the blind leading the blind. And so you see these men bringing in millions of dollars to put into their AV systems and their fancy churches and the coffee shops and the bookstores and the, investing in all this swag to promote their business, because that's what it is. It's big business. And so then the people, the congregants, see, okay, so these men are paving the streets of gold in their heaven. They're building up their treasures in heaven, and they're building it up with the gold from this world. But that's totally the wrong allegory for the streets being paved with gold.
Well, we're waiting for them in the next life, that we'll have these streets of gold in the life to come. Yet Christ said peace that passed understanding and no condemnation was available to us now. And yet we're waiting for this thing, this material thing, a material heaven, when he said the kingdom of God is within. Well, if the kingdom of God is within, then where is heaven?
Right.
Where could heaven be?
Exactly. It's not an outward thing. It's not.
It's saying it's beyond the stars. And then, if the second heaven and the third heaven is beyond that, that's where God is. Well, where's beyond all the stars?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's something that we
That's the
don't think
black
of.
hole. I mean, that's the infinite expansion. It's expanding right into you. You're the perspective that holds that up, that gives all that meaning. It comes through us fractally, and collectively we form it and define it. And I don't disagree or agree with James on that statement. I totally get it. I mean, I think that is where we take the bait a lot, and we end up fighting amongst each other. Collectively, I mean, it could play out a bunch of different ways as far as I could see it. And I know people would say that's heretical, but I lean towards what your brother said earlier, man. Christ said, if you just believe, you'll be safe. Your faith has saved you. Your faith. How much power do you have in you if your faith could save you? If all authority of the Father was given to the Son and his co-heirs, we are children of the Most High. What are we looking for authority when it comes to any of these things? They're telling us what it is when we are it. That's what quantum physics is trying to do right now, and what AI is emulating. It's all trying to tell us something that, it's trying to give meaning to the thing that is meaning. It's the inmates running the asylum.
It's trying to become the meaning. Yeah, exactly. So James asked, how many still believe that revelations will come true? Well, I just want to pose the question, James, considering that the things that we've covered and the topics that we've touched on regarding the illusion of time, right? Linear time anyway, as we view it, and it really being a web that you step from one moment into another, you picture a web, or even I have this image of the neurons in our brain, the cosmos. I think there's even one that's a picture of the lungs, and all of them look like branches, like the tree of life, right? They're just shooting out all over, right? And in this web of time, we need to understand that revelation already happened. Everything that we have an account of has already happened. There's nothing new under the sun. And in the way that it plays out is really determinant. I believe that the way that we believe, the way that we know, is how it's going to turn out. Because Christ said, right, how many times have we been through cycle after cycle after cycle? Christ touched on this when he said, look at the signs in the sky. You can discern the signs for the weather, right? But you don't even know what time it is. You don't know what time it is in the cosmos. And so, he's pointing to the fact that we don't really understand that when he said this realm will pass away and a new heaven and a new earth will be made, that everything that we understand as being reality now is going to pass away. And the way that revelations is happening is not just because I believe, like David and I talked about today, that if you believe, these things happen because we believe, right?
Yeah.
It's not that we believe because they happen, but Jesus was real.
The alternative to that? The alternative is there was some guy in the sky that formed a bunch of prophecies that are now coming true because some deity made it and designed it that way. And you can believe that. I mean, I think it's much bigger than that, and it's much more intimate than that. And we're much more involved. We have a lot more accountability and responsibility in that, because to me, it's how can I be a co-creator with Christ? How can I have all authority if I'm going to put the power outside of me like that and say it's something out there? I don't know if that's.
No, it's like Becky says, every single answer we search for is found within as a knowing. And when we have that gnosis, again, I've touched on that. The gnosis is, we hear in scripture wisdom and knowledge are key, but wisdom and knowledge are great to attain, but the key is understanding for these things, right? And so that's how I see gnosis is actually not just knowledge, but gnosis is truly knowledge, wisdom, and understanding combined, right? And so All of these things do come within, and then like you said, the ever expanding infinite expanse, the source energy that expands and has no limit and no end, infinite. It's expanding. We hear the word expanding and we think this expands outwards, but it's expanding inward into the singular point that we are, and then projected through those fractalized projectors, right? That's like
Yeah.
like a computer screen projecting these images. And so when you start to begin to understand that, I think that's where a greater breaking can start happening, because I know for me, the biggest thing was, I think it was in one of the chats. It was in the chat last night, where the person was saying, "I don't want the responsibility of being a god. I don't want that kind of responsibility."
I saw that too. I've actually heard that quite a few times.
Yeah. And so I think that's why we remain in the way things are, is because we're like the children of Israel. We desire to have a king over us and somebody to tell us what's right and what's law and what's truth, when
Yeah.
really we need that, because the word of God is written on our hearts. And we are the word of God. We are the vibration, the energy, the frequency that was emitted when he spoke it out. We are Colossians 1:16. We are the Christ. We are the ones that were there in the beginning with him before anything was made. And then all of it was made in us, by us, through us, and for us, just like Colossians 1:16 says. And when we refuse to step up into that position of the Christ seat and die to self and take up that cross and follow that ideal that he showed us. This is what the Father is. If you've seen me, you have seen the Father. And so when we see what he gave us in love your neighbor, forgive unlimitedly, and work on your own heart. Don't worry, because it's not going to add a cubit to your stature when you follow these few simple things in his gospel, and you step away from the Pollyanity and the just the Jesuit doctrines that really do stem back to these Anunnaki creators, manipulators of the Adamic race. And that's another rabbit. Yeah, go ahead, please do.
Part of why it is so difficult to step into this truth, not that you're God, because you're not God,
Right.
in the sense that collectively, if you were God, then you would be dealing with all this shit.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, you're a fractal of the Most High that's confused and misidentified. So
Yeah.
you don't want to get it misconfused. But the reason we don't want to step into our truth, our responsibility as that fractal within that framework of the creation, is because we step into infinite love when we do that, and infinite forgiveness. And that means we have to embody that, take responsibility that, we have to offer that. And people are too stuck in judgment. They want to still hate the murderer. They want to still blame the accuser.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to offer the solution to the things that they hate the most, because they still deem themselves not equal with their brother or sister, but better than.
Yeah, exactly. And
That's the toughest part about it for me. I'm not judging anybody else's path. And freedom is available. I'm telling you, you can walk without a mind filled with condemnation. And I hesitate so much to say that, because I feel my ego creep up when I say it. The ego feeds off that. And it's like, yeah, you're enlightened. You got, and no. I understand there are infinite, plethoras of perspectives that I'm not seeing when I make that statement. So the levels of consciousness and awareness that are beyond where I'm currently at when I'm making this statement would literally blow my mind just to see a speck of it. But I never believed you could have peace now. I didn't think that was in this lifetime, that in this flesh, I could walk without condemnation. I had convinced myself, even as a Christian, all the pastors, no one told me I had this authority. when that light switch flicked and I had that epiphany through people like you and all these brothers and sisters, you know, reflecting off each other, that Christ was promising me a mind of freedom. And then there's so much that goes into it, brother. Just the fact that my name's Freedom Grower, all this stuff. I mean, literally, like, I had no idea what I was doing when I started this path. All I wanted to do was grow some pot plants. You know, I had no idea it was going to end up being my testimony, and I was going to publicly bear my whole refinement process for the world. You know, and I know it's not like a ton of people watch me, but I know it was purpose driven. There's no accidents. And I know there's a lot of people who, when I say these things, their mind jumps in and says, you can't have that. That's not for you. That dude's full of it. I'll give you a reason you can't be free. I'll give you a reason to have condemnation. As a matter of fact, if it's not for yourself, I'll give you a reason to condemn somebody else.
Right.
And you'll take the words I am, and you'll say, I'm pissed at that motherfucker. I'm gonna go get even. I'm gonna take it. You know what I mean? I am. And you're gonna add something to that. Mm-hmm. And you're gonna lose your peace. So we're not really turning into anything, actually. We're discovering who we are.
There you go.
The truth that we are never changed. You know, it was never exempt or lacking anything. It was always existing in complete perfection, observing the whole process as it created meaning for itself. And
we can lose the beauty in that meaning too, man. Getting caught up in the reality of this illusory realm, right? Like get so caught up in it and get so down and miss the blessings that we actually have. And I know I'm trying to reprogram with it. I did the etymology thing with bless, and but you know, the whole thing, you know, just
you did the etymology with what? I didn't follow that.
The word bless, be less.
Oh
yeah. So I'm trying to change that, even that stuff. You know, I think that we can get dogmatic even about the new things that we find out, dude. I mean,
let a word destroy us.
Yeah, and I
give our power over to a word.
Or food, the food that we consume. We talked about that earlier off air. Like Christ said, it's not what goes into a man that defiles him, but what comes out of his mouth, because that from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so he talked a lot about not condemning yourself over eating meat, even meat that was sacrificed to idols. And
it's the unconsciousness, it's the unawareness. We're all casting these spells unintentionally and unaware. Once we become aware of it, we break the spell. You can say whatever word you want to as that signpost, and point your light wherever you want it to go. But we hesitate to say it because we don't want to be a stumbling block to others.
Freedom, I want to touch on something very pertinent. I feel the Spirit pulling me to just kind of break away from what we're talking about and talk about Becky. She says, Brother Freedom, you hit a nerve with me yesterday. I too have murdered an unborn child.
Yep.
And she went on to say, hardest decision I've ever made. You helped me forgive myself last night. I'm at peace. And so I just want to touch on that, bro, because I think that that's something that we also talked about off air, is how we can really have the self-condemnation come in, that, or even the doubts, right? Is what I'm doing making a difference? Is this really gonna any effect on the big picture, right? On the outcome? And
Dude, I had people attack me on it today, bro. Like, what you're doing is meaningless. You're making an idiot of yourself up there. You're looking like an ass.
Right here is proof. This right here is proof. And that's why I wanted to step away and just confirm the work that you're doing through Becky's statements, man. This might have been something that she struggled with for who knows how much longer, had she not heard the broadcast last night. And so I want to encourage anybody who might come across this thread that criticizes YouTubers. You know, I've had a lot of that from pastors, bro. Like pastors that I know that use YouTube as a platform for live streaming will criticize anybody who has a platform outside of the church on YouTube and say it's filled with crazies and this and that. I want to encourage you,
I
don't
don't see him on here having discussions with us because honestly, I've made my channel a complete open forum, and all belief structures, as long as you're respectful and we can have productive communication, just meaning that there can be a dialogue that goes back and forth. I don't have to agree with anything. I'll give people the floor, hear them out, as long as the respect is mutual. You know, that's it. But that's not the way the church system's set up, because to have intelligent, critical thinking minded conversation is the downfall of that whole system.
Yeah, totally. I agree with you 100%, man. I just want to thank you for your willingness to share that, man, because I know it was difficult. And I know that it's something that even if you've forgiven yourself, it's not an easy subject. And especially with the epiphany that you had, the revelation that you had last night on air, dude, like that's the thing. You see the flash, you see the realization, and you see the emotional transformation right in front of you as you were having that realization of what that spirit did for you.
I forgive myself, but I could start bawling right now just because it's so meaningful and so impactful how much it's shaped and carved my experience and actually led to my quote spiritual awakening or understanding. And I mean, it is, how do I want to frame this up? Let me put it this way. I was young. It's not an excuse, but I was young and I had no understanding, and all I cared about was making money. And I had a girlfriend, and we did love each other, but we were just, neither of us were ready to get married or, you know, take it to that next level. And she got pregnant, and I didn't actually want to have an abortion. But I didn't fight it either. And then I ended up supporting it. And my conscience seared me at the time. You know, she was saying, "Oh, I'll just have an abortion. It'll be easy. It's no problem." And I knew it was like this monumental thing. I could just feel my gut churning. I can remember all these years later. This is 2 decades ago. But all these years later, I felt like it was yesterday. And I remember wanting to fight it, but not having the power at the time. Sounds like a cop out, but it's just what happened. And I helped pay for the abortion. And then I had convinced myself it was no big deal. And I think for the next 3-5 years, I went on like it was nothing. And then overwhelming condemnation kicked in. And I realized I killed my child because I saw abortion protesters and saw all the connections. And I saw a little baby fetus, and this lady gave me a plastic baby fetus. And I saw my child, bro. And I realized I was a murderer. And I wasn't just a murderer. I didn't just kill a family member. I killed the most precious thing that anyone could ever have. And I have 2 kids, bro. So I am the worst, dude. If salvation wasn't for me, and it's not salvation, but that's what I was looking for when I came into all this, you know? If there's no forgiveness available, then I couldn't have it, and I have it, and I have peace that passes understanding. You know, someone would, if I told them that and they didn't have the context, they'd say, that's a sick motherfucker. He killed his kid and he says he has peace. You know, that dude's a murderer and he has peace. The Most High takes the foolish things to confound the wise. And there will be tons that will judge and say, he doesn't deserve it. He can't have it. It doesn't matter. If you have it, you have it. And all you can do is share it. I know it was my son. I just know it was a boy for some reason. There's some strange telepathic thing there. But yeah.
I want to ask you, dude, do you have a confidence? Do you know in your heart? Do you know in your heart? Because I want to encourage you to know in your heart, dude. You're going to know him, dude.
I have
And
peace that passes
and he's
understanding.
gonna
I walk with the Most
freaking
High.
hug you, and he's gonna tell you, dude, I've been fucking waiting for you, man. I know it, dude. He's gonna
He's an
share
ancestor,
things.
bro. I
Yeah,
walk with him
totally.
every day, 100%.
That blesses my heart to hear that, man. It fucking blesses my heart to hear that, man.
Yeah, there's no
Uh,
separation. There's no condemnation in the mind of Christ, man. It's complete freedom. All these
I
things,
think that
if I took the opportunity to judge myself, it gives you more opportunity to judge yourself. I'm not gonna give my power away like that. I don't know why, but I don't feel inclined or compelled to anymore. I've been freed, so I asked for that freedom. I got that. I don't want to lose it. So I don't want the ego to come in and be like, I'm free. Look at me. No, I don't even, again, I hesitate to say it, but yeah, I've done the worst things anybody could ever do. And I don't condemn myself, and I'm free. And that's my testimony. And anyone can judge me, and they can say, you're the biggest piece of shit in the world. And, I'll find a million other reasons you suck. And it's like, dude, I love you so much. You have no idea. And I just want you to have peace. That's all I want. To anyone that would want to attack what's been shown to me and what I have. It's available to anyone. It's freely given to anyone that would ask, to anyone that would seek earnestly, that will humble themselves.
man. And see, this is the lesson in losing that judgment. Because when you can look in the mirror and then you understand that we are all fragments and that we are all connected and we are all self. I think about it when I was in prison, or I didn't ever make it all the way to prison, but I spent a good part of my younger life in and out of jail, man. I spent months in and out of the county jail at several spurts. And I was always, because of the nature of my background, I was always put in this cell block D, the worst of the worst. I was put in with murderers. I was put in with people that were being transferred, murderers, life sentencers that were being transferred for their court cases. And so, guys that really didn't give a shit if you lived or died. If you change a channel and they didn't like what you put it on, they'll break your neck, or that, and so. But here's the thing that I learned while being in there, right? You go in, and I knew how to do time. You go in, you're silent, you mind your own business, you're kind of cold, you put up your wall, you interact with that masculine, a wall up, but here's the thing, man. As you sit with a murderer, I was sitting with a dude that killed 12 people.
Yeah.
12 people. One of them was his wife, and the other one of the two of the 12, one was his wife, one of his was his kid. And I was sitting talking to him, bro. I met the realest man in the world, who had a heart of compassion, who was just like you and I, man. Just like you and I, somebody who's been through hell and back, somebody who's experienced the loss of somebody that they love, and not only that, at their own hands, right? And one thing that I learned from that man is that the same spirit that resides in me resides in him. And when we take the time to sit and talk with somebody, rather than casting judgment based on their past or even based on a look, you know what I'm saying? We can find the greatest treasures from the kingdom within the darkest people, or what we would consider to be the darkest people here, because many times we have been the ones to learn the hardest lessons in the strangest ways. And so,
what did Christ offer? That's what his whole message was. It was this space out of the oppression that everyone was under. They were locked under this law that they could never fulfill, they could never fully atone for, that kept them in a state of lack. And he brought a truth that no one could even comprehend. It passed all their understanding. You mean I can be completely content, fully self-sufficient within everything that's been freely provided? Because everything I have, I've received anyway. And all things are provided in the time that they're needed. Any sense of lack is only a teacher that shows us the truth. So it's the most paramount thing to me. If you can have peace that passes understanding now in this life, you have the ability to walk in that and step into that. That needs to be confronted. That has to be faced. Now, if it's not true and I'm a liar and no one can achieve that and it's just a pipe dream, then find out for yourself. Find out for yourself. But if it's not true, what is your reason? Who's your excuse? Who'd you give your power to? It's so important to take accountability, because you'll find you don't have peace because of something somebody else said to you, or a set of circumstances that happened, or the way the reality took form. The way it took shape was not in alignment with what you deemed appropriate. So because of that, you've given your peace away to it as well.
Mm-hmm. And that's amazing how easily we can give up our peace when we allow the mind to run.
But we're identifying with an element of ourself that is self-lack, that is in a state of chaos and disease and dysfunction and disorder. All the disses. So we're only seeing through this dark glass, this one perspective of ourselves, this small dimensional field.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's another thing I'd love to chop it up with you on, is like just ether.
Oh, dude.
What is the field in field theory? If you can look at all these amazing scientists, man, and I'm like, okay, tell me what that is.
Right. I think we've got a great sense of what that is, and especially as we do these this research, right? And I think that's one of the things that blows me away with some of the things that God gives me. Is I see these things. I see, it's strange, and this is why people think I'm crazy, because I see waveforms. I see geometrical structures. I see coding. Almost like what you would see on the screen of the intro for the Matrix, and it's the numbers falling, raining down. I see things in code like that, and
Jonathan Kleck does that on his opening of his videos. I started watching that guy recently.
Oh, does he?
Yep.
I'll have to check him out. I have to check him out.
He's got interesting views. He talks about that it's a insect species. And I don't want to misquote the guy. I mean, I've only listened to a real quick glancing of his work, but that's apparently going to eat us in the coming days. And, you know, I'm not saying any of this stuff is true or not true, but there's a lot of fear propaganda going on out there right now to get everybody to be stricken with a sense of helplessness and no ability to defend off the imminent threat that's coming. And I'm telling you, that is a lie from the pits of hell, if there ever was one. There is going to be all kinds of shit in the days ahead that's going to challenge you. And the refinement process is at an all-time peak. Of course, we can all feel that and we can all sense that. But what is going to be eaten? Your flesh? Oh, they're going to eat your soul? And so what part of your soul can be eaten? Where is your soul at that it can be eaten? You know, if these things can happen, let's just ask some real common sense questions. Like, what are they going to eat? We're all food. Well, we've been being eaten for, you know, however many cycles this thing has been playing out. Our energy has been powering this whole thing. That's the only thing that gives this illusion any meaning. That's the whole thing, is yes, it is our energy that's powering this deception. We're accountable for it. We're responsible for it. We're the only ones that can stop it. And we do it through the way, the truth, and the light, the life. Some people want to argue over that. He said he is the way, the truth, and the life, but he also is the light of the world, which we are as co-heirs. We hold that same light. We have a responsibility to shine it. I don't mean to say any of that stuff with ego. I mean, it's maybe sounds like I'm saying it kind of rigid. I need to say it more lovingly, but I want to not shy away from, you have the responsibility. It's not like a rigid slap to the head. It's the most amazing, empowering thing that you actually can step into a place of not only accountability, but having the solution. You're not left without, you are the solution.
Exactly. He's not going to leave you without answers. Right.
Don't be afraid of being peace. If you're the only one who can bring peace to the world and love to the world, and you deny yourself and everyone around you that, I mean, we have the opportunity to love our neighbor as we would ourselves.
But it starts with self, though. That's the key, man. It does start with self. And when you despise, here's one of the points that I was coming
Who's
to.
the self that we're loving, though, right?
Well, that's the thing. I was coming to this realization that a lot of times we hate God, and we hate God in us, right? Like, I've had all this loss, and I don't know how many times I've been like, man, F God, like, F you. You're this great God, but you're taking my family, like when my father was murdered, when I lost my little sister.
Let's
Man,
talk about that.
I called God out and told him, come down right now and prove to me that you're real. Come down and strike me dead, motherfucker. I mean, I was cussing him.
Oh, yeah.
And I asked for forgiveness all the time, and I know I've been forgiven. But when we hate this outward God, even not understanding that he's in us and that he is us, he's part of us. Like Angry was saying, like Eric was saying, and I think James was asking, we're not greater than the Father. Well, no, we're not greater than the Father. But what did Christ? That's why he was crucified, because he made himself equal with the Father, because he is the Son, because he has the genetics, because he will. What happens when the king steps down, the Son steps up and takes the throne. And so he is equal with God, and us being children of God. And that's what Christ said, you would become sons of God. And he even quoted Old Testament scripture when he says, is it not written in your law that ye are sons of God? And so he pointed out multiple times that we have the same inheritance as his. But when we despise the Father, we are like the older brother in that prodigal story that I was sharing, that that we dip out in anger, and we flip the Father off, and we flip the Son off, and we're just angry because we want that inheritance, and so
we're selfish.
Exactly. We don't want.
The only one that can be selfish is the one that is separated from source.
We don't want anyone to be forgiven because we're afraid that they will take our inheritance, when we don't understand that the inheritance was for both sons. It was for the prodigal and the one who remained. There was enough of an inheritance to split between both of them. But
both had a lesson to learn.
Exactly. And,
but how I just want to hit on losing a loved one.
Yeah.
That's a really difficult spot that people might relate to. I mean, do you have any words of wisdom there, brother?
Well, I would say, man, because I've also noticed, I think that what you shared was huge, bro, as far as your own personal experience, because I've seen James say that he struggled with the same thing, Becky. I mean, it's touching. And so I also want to be obedient in sharing some of my experiences as well. And I think that there is something about loss that it's part of the programming that we've received here, that the funerals, the mourning, that's for those that are left behind. We're the only ones who suffer that. The one who passed is in that next realm. And why are we sad? Why are we missing them? This is how I've dealt with this, is because I've come to an understanding that they are an eternal energy, and that if they've gone before me, then they've gone somewhere. They haven't left me. Yeah. Just like my Father says, he's not going to leave me or forsake me. And so they've gone somewhere. And so they're not really gone. My Father's not gone. And as I've been beginning to understand, and even begin to be able to manipulate the astral projecting and the lucid dreaming and dream recalls, things like that, I'm starting to see that I can gain the same thing that I would from him here, if not more so, in that spiritual realm through those dreams, even without words being said. Because one of the realest dreams I had about him was shortly, it was maybe just a few years after he died. And he came into the living room, and in my dream, I knew he was dead. He was already murdered. And so I was shocked as shit. And I'm like, Dad, sit down, wait, I got to go get everybody. And so I ran down the hall to go get everybody. Dad's here, he's not dead. And it was almost very reminiscent of the way the scriptures are written. Mary ran to go get somebody because, because they were excited that Lazarus had come out of the grave, or whatever, however that correlates right now. But the point is that I left to go get people, and when I came back, he was walking out the door, and I had this panic and this anxiety, like, Dad, no, don't leave. I got to talk to you. I miss you. I just got to talk to you. And as he walked out the door, I ran right out after him, and he was gone. And it was like, in that, he told me so much about the fact that he didn't leave, that he's right here with me, and that even though I might not hear the words he's speaking, he can help me with the answers that I'm lacking here, right? And that's where I seen the deceptions in the church, where they speak about the ancestors or the spirit guides or whatever actually just being from the enemy. You know what I'm saying? But I truly believe that we have ancestors, like you touched on, that your baby was an ancestor, and you walk with him every day. And that's something that I walk in every day, that that I know that I'm with my father right now, that he's here. That spiritual realm has been documented by many, many paranormal, I don't know if you want to call them scientists, but people who study the paranormal, and even theologians and historians that have studied the religious aspects of these writings, all come to an agreement that this other dimension, this realm, the heavenly realms, are actually just inches or feet above this realm. That's why when you see an apparition, it looks like it's floating, because that dimension is actually just right above this realm. It's not separate from this. It's actually just a different spectrum of the electromagnetic field that we can't perceive. And so, understanding that, man, I know that I can feel my father, and I do. I feel him sometimes.
Right.
My my brother Mario. I mean, that's probably the one that I have the hardest time with connecting with, is my cousin that was raised like a brother, that was shot in the head when we were teenagers. But I think that that's more about I've still got some inner work to do with that loss, because I think that there's still a lot of hurt that I didn't deal with because of the age that I was at when he was killed. And so, with losing the loved one, man, I think that if that's something that you guys have gone through, or that you might be facing, because I know that we've talked, Rick, and our stories are so similar, man. We've gone through a lot of loss recently, and one of those losses is a father-in-law, and
Yep.
And he died to cancer, and it was
Same name.
yeah, with the same name, man. That's what was mind blowing. I didn't say his name or anything, and then you start telling me the similarities in the story, and when you said his name, man, I literally broke out into tears, dude, and I was like, what the fuck, man. And so, losing, and even the same kind of time frames, and the fact that your wife provided his hospice care and health, end of life care. My wife provided the end of life care. Recently, she just did the same thing for her mother, and so I've seen these aspects, the varying aspects of losing somebody young, and just a shock, a surprise.
Sure.
Their life was ended too soon, blah blah blah, all the things that you hear when somebody young dies, and in horrible ways. My father was beat to death. My grandfather was shot and killed 6 months after that. Just a year or two before that, I think it was a year before my father was murdered, is when I found out that my bro Mario had been shot and killed. And it was just death after death after death, and they were all horrible, like murders and really just bad things, man. And so coming out of that, and then coming into this time in my life where I've seen people older in their age, and I mean, Greg was still young, Connie was still young. They were still young considering, you know, what they had to suffer. Connie had dementia, and so these seeing that end of life, and that it wasn't a, well, Greg was kind of a surprise and a shock, but we had that 2 months in between diagnosis and the time he passed, so we still had time, that we knew he was going to pass, but we had that time to care for him,
Yeah.
to
Ours was 5 months. It was to me incredibly fast from diagnosis to death, or death of the flesh.
it's like a flash. It is like a flash, dude. And so in that, you know, and then the reason we moved in and started living here with the in-laws was to help Greg with Connie and her dementia. And so coming out of that and seeing this long process of somebody passing away in front of your eyes, like, that was the most difficult thing for me. Not because, okay, so the death and the losing her and the walking through it, she was like a mother to me. I've been a part of this family since I was a kid. I met my wife when I was 17 and she was 14. And so we've been together for years, for decades, man. And so she was like a mother to me. And so it was hurtful for me to see these things. But the thing that was more hurtful for me was to see my wife having to bear this burden of do this end of life care, not just for her father, but for her mother also, right after she did it for her father. You know what I'm saying? And so coming out of that, man, death can be a very, very, very heavy, difficult thing, even with the greatest understanding, confidence, and faith in God. It can shake you to the core, and it can break you down to that point that you said you have to be rebuilt. And I see that process happening now in my family. You know, this family has put so much into this care and these things, and then suffering the loss. Even knowing what I just explained about knowing that my father was here, he hasn't left, and Connie hasn't left, Greg hasn't left. But when it's still fresh on you, man, oh my gosh, the things that it can reveal, and that's really what it does, Rick, is it reveals the depths of our own heart and our own spirit, man.
Yeah.
And so,
well, there's a perspective of what death is that's been programmed into us, even through cartoon imagery as children, pictures of a devil guy with a fork, pitchfork, and some hot, fiery, burning place. And so there's the possibility that death could be this awful place, or that it could be this beautiful place, right? With a heaven, gold streets, like we talked about. But if the kingdom of God is within, then where is hell?
I would say the same place.
I would say it's outside. I'm just thinking, if the kingdom of God is within, then hell would be outside.
Well, here's the thing: is that
if hell is the yin to heaven in that kind of context. I mean, I'm not saying I'm right. It's just a thought I had as we were talking, or as you were telling your testimony on this. I just think that we often look at death. Okay, is it possible death is no lack? And I know you understand this, but for anyone struggling with this, is it possible that death is infinite love? And if that's the truth, because you don't know unless you've experienced death or you've had a near death experience. A lot of people come back and they say that it's infinite love. It was infinite acceptance. It's the most joyous thing you could ever imagine. So say that's what it is. It's connection back to source, completeness, no lack. So hell is out here. This is the lack inside the kingdom, death of the flesh, everything burnt off. The only thing left, the truth. is perfect peace, infinite love. And so we would never want to deny that for the people we love the most, is all I'm saying. If that's the truth, if we know this truth, and we know that inherently, like you said, even the worst person you can think of has this light in them. The murderers that you sat in jail with have this light. Even your own child, even the person you love the most has this light. And in that context, them knowing that through the death of the flesh, we would never want to deny that truth to someone that we love the most. So it's only our ego that's still holding on, saying, no, I want to have that in that form that it took, that shape. But the fact that the one you love the most has no lack and is that perfect peace in you, walking with you, interconnected with you. It just, that perspective has helped me with death, because I've experienced death, of course, too. And I noticed death is an extremely painful thing for some people. If they have liver cancer and kidney cancer and it metastasizes through the body, you may be praying for the person you love to be able to be released of that pain. So it becomes actual relief, for them, because it was so heavy. And that's how it was in our case, man. I mean, my wife went out for 2 months on the hospice stuff, and then we kept going back out, and it was not getting better. I believe my father-in-law's at perfect peace. That's all I'm saying. That gives me comfort.
I want to say that I agree with you 100% on the outward-inward perspective. I think that where I say it's in us is because I think that it stems from that separation of falling into this reality. And so somebody might hear me say in and hear you say out. But that's
it's
why
the same thing. It's all ether. That's why we gotta talk about the ether, because that's why the ether, you realize it overstands all that, so none of it's relevant.
Exactly. And that's why I posted Brandon's comment, how can only exist inward if one hasn't made the two become one? Because the one split into two hemispheres. And so that's why I say hell is derived from in here when we aren't doing the work and the realization, or let me put it this way, when we don't step up and receive our inheritance, that's wherein hell is then inward and projected outwardly. And I think that this outward projection of hell is hell. I think that this is one level of hell, just like there's different levels of heaven. I think that that's why it says that Christ descended into the depths of Hades, right? And I think this was just one stop on his way to the most dense realm, which we would consider the pit. And so I think that we've actually exited the pit.
This is the weakest link in the chain right here.
Yes, exactly. So
this is, we build our foundation on the changing sand, the third dimensional weakest link of the chain that's ever changing. Nothing is permanent. Anything you put your identity into out here is going to be dissolved, is going to be destroyed. You're going to have to watch it burn with gnashing of teeth. So build your foundation on the truth, on that solid, reliable light that you can have confidence in, that you can know that's inside you. That's where your identity needs to be placed in Christ, which is a signpost. People, when they hear Christ or Jesus, I say Christ because when they think Jesus Christ, the first thing they think with that signpost is a plastic Jesus on a wall, or the picture in the book, or whatever you had as an imagery growing up. And then you think, oh, I've got to pray out to Jesus. I need to find this thing outside of me. And I remember I had a spiritual guru once, Joe, that he really fucked me up. He said, you can't get out through your prayers to God because they have a shield over everything right now. And you need to focus all your energy out and try to get out of that shield. And until you become spiritually enlightened enough through the fasting and the veganism and the purging of all the chemicals and just doing this detoxification process, eventually your third eye will open up enough that your light will be able to focus and your consciousness will penetrate the shield, and you will be able to break out of the firmament, if you will, the glass dome, that's stopping us from reaching God, and that this was actually the trap. And I spent a while on my meditation, like trying to break the dome. And then I realized I'm creating the dome to God. Because he told me it and I believed it, dude. And so now there was a dome there, and I'm like, fuck, I can't get through it.
Yeah, exactly. But
And
that
that's
is
the power we have. It's all perspective. We have to know the truth.
That's where we can come into the quantum physics of it, man, is that it is the veil is fading, the toroidal field that keeps these realms separate. The veil, it's actually fading, and that's wherein we are, as Eric has said, that we are being connected back to the authority of controlling our own atoms, our own magnets. And so that the seven or the octillion, 7 octillion atoms that make up this body, which is subatomic particles, we are going to be able to control that. And just like Christ with his transfiguration, he was in a light body. He was emanating light, but he was in a body. And here's the thing: the picture of Moses and Elisha on the Mount of Transfiguration with him shows that duality, that Moses was serving Yahweh and Elijah was serving the Most High. And here's what happened. They show him in the light body and they're both there with him. They're both there with him. And so that shows that image again of what we spoke about earlier, making the two one. Yes. And so all three combined, because like you said, that is actually an eye. It has rods, it has cones. It's actually an eye.
More your eye than these are. You can see better with this eye than you ever could imagine, because this eye is locked in this dimension of chaos and self-lack. So it's identifying all the things that we are believing in and giving our power over to. This is helping us give ourselves over to the lie. I'm not saying these are bad. I'm just saying unconscious, they're part of how we're interacting with the lie in a way that's trapping us. And so by seeing with the single eye, you see the truth for what it is. And it gives a new perspective to these eyes. It has to be, well, I mean, you're still single. It should always be single. You should never be seeing with a divided eye.
All right. Because that division leads to that wide gate. It's almost like if you're walking with your head down. When you're looking with these eyes, it's almost like you're walking with your head down and you're just looking at each step in front of you, right? And that's what you're taught in church, to just walk by faith, not by sight. And I agree with that, but here's the deception in that, is that when you're walking by faith, not by sight, I believe it means exactly what you're talking about, viewing things with that third eye, with the spiritual eye, so that you can see things from all perspectives, almost like if you're out of your body, right? You can see your peripheral is much greater. You can see shit behind you. You can see stuff coming up that's sneaking up on you, right? Yeah. But when you're looking with these eyes, it's like you're looking down at the ground and you're walking and just seeing each step in front of you. And then before you know it, you're in a fucking swamp and you're sinking in quicksand, right? Because you didn't watch where the hell you were walking with the eye that you were given. And so I think that's a great allegory, bro. I think that's wonderful, the way that you frame that up.
It's like, when should I meditate? When should I go spend time with God? You know, or should I always meditate? Always be of this mind, this, you know. Okay, so if I'm going to think about when I should meditate, you know, it all becomes another opportunity to make some kind of thing that I have to do. But check this out. The mind will say, well, not now. For example, I was really sick, right? I had the pain in my stomach. I'm just sitting here in agonizing pain. And my mind goes, oh, you can't be with God right now because you're in a lot of pain. You know, you gotta. And I'm like, yeah, but I wasn't in pain for the last, 5 months. And then you would tell me I was too busy doing YouTube videos, or I was too busy doing, functions with kids, or, taking care of family members or whatever. So mind, you were giving me, you always have a reason for me not to be with God and not to know myself. And even when you're at your worst and you're at dire pain, that's what I'm saying. How much pain before you finally go inside? And then I just kept getting more and more. And it's like, okay, I give. I'm going in. I'm diving deep. And can you meditate with pain? Absolutely. Can you be one with source and be at peace with pain? Absolutely. It's the best way to deal with it. But I just find that funny, man. It's like there's always a reason not to acknowledge the truth.
Mhm. Dude, I think that's a great lead into to talk about fasting. I think that oftentimes when we don't suffer the flesh willingly, the flesh will suffer, and I'm kind of experiencing the same thing right now. And I think maybe some of people in the chat might be. James touches on the ears ringing, the physical pains, the headache. It's all part of the catching up to the consciousness of the fourth dimensional change. And I think that there is even that shift beyond the fourth dimension, and the fifth dimension is something that's going to be perceivable in this physical realm. But I do believe that like Christ was able to traverse, basically climb up and down Jacob's ladder, right?
Yeah.
He could climb to the heights of heaven and to the depths of Sheol. And so
he showed all the colors of it, didn't he? Of the spectrum.
exactly. And so I think that we're going to have that. He said, "You'll do greater works than me." So I believe that you'll have that ability to go beyond the fifth dimension once we break out of this realm.
But
right?
so when he let his light shine, it was the full rainbow. It wasn't just one perspective, one spectrum. He showed you even anger and going in and throwing over the money exchangers' tables, and you wicked vipers from the pits of hell, den of vipers or whatever.
And I think
he was a real dude. In the way he's described in the red letters, not necessarily in the doctrines, but he would have been the way he's described, hanging with all the outcasts, all the crazy people, all the ones that couldn't get, along with the system and couldn't figure it out. They ended up being druggies or prostitutes or losers, had a big L on their head. Everybody judged them as worthless, the meek, the mild, the humble, the crushed.
Totally. It's crazy,
Why?
man.
Because those people are ready to see the truth, right? They're ready. They've felt enough pain, whether in self-imposed or just the strokes of life. They had I guess you could say, a bad set of cards, but maybe it was the best deck you could be dealt. Because if the meek inherit the earth, if it's harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom than a camel to go through the eye of a needle, well, I don't want to be a rich man then. If I want to be in the kingdom, I want to have peace that passes understanding. That's a whole subject.
When I started learning about law of attraction, I was like amazed, like, oh wow, man, this is part of our inheritance. And in a way it is, but here's the thing, that in our finite minds, we think that if we vibrate high, then the vibrations that we receive back, the frequencies we tune into, it's all going to be lollipops and cake and freaking candy. But it's not, because the higher self sees us and says, well, I know that he's a stubborn asshole and he's not going to get it through his thick skull. And he's praying for a deeper realization who God is. He's praying for a tighter connection to source. And he's praying to know himself and to know Christ in himself in a way that he never has. But he's not going to get it by me giving him this fucking $1 million and a Ferrari.
No, that's not how you get it.
He's not going to get it through that. So even though in his law of attraction mind, he's vibrating to the color of money and he's vibrating to this view of success. And then when we get hit with this fucking blind side of, well, fuck, I was vibing high. I've been on my P's and Q's and I've been manifesting the fuck out of some great things. Where in the hell did this come from? Well, that came from your higher self. And that was a law of attraction giving you exactly what you needed to wake up to the question that you were asking. Right. And so, or to that which you were seeking that you thought you were lacking. Sometimes it's like, you're not lacking shit, man. Wake up. This is in you. And so in a way, at first I was like, fuck yeah, law of attraction is the greatest thing. And then now I'm like, we're moving away from this law this realm of laws and the law of attraction, and we will be able to just do, and it's not about attraction anymore. And so now in my mind, I'm kind of like, in my mind's eye, I'm kind of like, fuck the law of attraction. You know what I'm saying? Because now we're beginning to understand how we can overcome that law that can trap us into that suffering of the prison that we're in right here, right now. And honestly, the prison that we're in, we look at it like a maximum security prison, and we treat it like that, not understanding that the prison that we're in, I've seen these prisons in like Thailand and in third world countries, that it's actually even, I think there's even some in Mexico, bro, that they're your family can move in with you. They're like a fucking city, right? You have freedom, you have a job, you go, it's just like living in the world, but it's its own contained little community for offenders. And so that's really what this realm, this realm that we call a prison world, is like one of those prisons. Yes, we're here, and yes, we're here to learn lessons, and yes, there are consequences, and yes, there are chastisements even. But here's the thing: we're free to have family, we're free to commune, we're free to fellowship, we're free to grow our food, we're free to work, we're free to do all of these things. And here's what it boils down to, is that we are even free to create, because that man that's in that prison, that can have his family, that can have a job, that can have a garden, you know what, he's creating in the same manner that the man that's outside of that prison is. In fact, he's creating in the same manner that God gave us the ability to create in, and having children. You can have a child in prison in those countries. And so that it's the same thing, man. We see this as freedom, when really those of us that are in this system, this corporate system of the Jesuit DC, London capitalists, the red shields, the synagogue of Satan, the Illuminati, all of these things that we give these names to, these powers and principalities, we've actually got power over all of that, man. And I kind of lost track where I was going, man.
Dude, check this out. Okay, I got to download when you're talking. Okay, so the truth, it can't have meaning without the perspective. Now, when I'm speaking of a fractal of the truth, which we are, right? A fractal of the truth, fractal of the Most High. It can't have any meaning without the perspective of self-lack to show itself to itself. The reason this is because if we are fractals of the Most High, meaning we're a piece of the body, we're part of the body, we have to see our self-lack, meaning separation from it all, to be able to see, to have the perspective of self that we truly are. So when we ask the Most High, our higher self, hey, I want truth, I want wisdom, I want to, I'm on the screen here, I want to know these truths, I want to receive this ultimate wisdom, we think it can just be granted to us through some kind of epiphany, but there's a perspective that has to be had, because if you don't have the perspective of lack, then the truth has no meaning. If there's no lack of truth, it's the yin and yang, it's the dark and the light, the good and the evil, the as within, so without, above, below. It is that duality once again playing out. So if you ask for it, you're going to have to see the opposite of what you ask for to be able to understand the meaning behind what you're actually. So then what it is. You won't know truth if you don't know the lack of truth. You have to see the opposite of that in this dichotomy that we're in to be able to have an understanding of both fields. You can't understand light without understanding darkness. You have no perspective to see one without the other. If you can't see the darkness from the light, if it's all light, no meaning exists to anything. If everything was just light, it would just be void in that sense. I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. And it shines a light on the whole term understanding. It really does. It really does. Because like you said, how can you have that perspective without seeing the flip side? How can you truly know what is?
So if you ask for it, you're going to get it. You're going to get the pain too. You got to know it. You came here for it. You won't get out of this without tribulation and persecution. It's guaranteed. I interrupted you, dude. I'm sorry.
No, you didn't, man. No, you didn't. I'm just in agreement with you, man. That just this is the thing that's amazing when it's just conversation, just fellowship, man. Like you get a download from what I'm saying, and then the download that you share from the words that I'm speaking actually shed light on everything that I'm talking about. For me first, inwardly, right? Like I'm like, man, that's fucking, it's spot on. And it's almost like when we're talking off air that we start to ask each other questions, and before we're even done asking the question, we already have the answer. And so it was kind of
Yeah.
like that. Like as soon as you start talking about it, I'm like having these biophotonic flashes of light, making the new connections in the synapses, and saying, "Yeah, it's something that I already knew."
Beautiful to see that, though, right?
Oh,
That you have
dude,
no lack. That
it
it
is.
is true. That now that you've stepped into this truth, you also see all the fruits of the spirit manifesting, and that when you ask, you receive, and it
Yeah.
becomes more and more instant, more and more telepathic as you do the fasting, which you wanted to touch on. I'm noticing it's just like a super booster pill into raising energy and connecting with the Most High.
And it's crazy because I've just been learning about that, and it actually had nothing to do with my fast until I think day before yesterday. I was talking to my wife about this, and I've shared with you, and so some of you viewers who don't understand or haven't heard of some of these struggles physically that we've been going through. Many of us are. Okay, this isn't just me and Rick, but many people, as you guys have mentioned in the chat, you believe that many of us who are receiving these truths, these downloads, and having these physical ailments are already in a space of the fourth dimension. And I believe that. I agree with that 100%. Especially doing the quantum research that I have regarding the empty space in between the neurological paths of your brain does pretty much point to a quantum consciousness that God is a universal consciousness, right? And so when we understand that infinite love is with us, and that there is nothing that's going to keep us from knowing through these very things that we suffer, that we have the greatest gift, which is that love that supersedes all things, that can get us through these physical ailments. And so being in those different dimensions is that level of consciousness. It's that vibratory field, so to speak. And speaking to my wife the other day, I've been telling her I need to fast, and then I got up off the toilet. I shared this with you, Rick. I got off the toilet the other morning, and I had bled out a lot, and to the point that I fell over. And I thought, this is it. This is it. I was panicking in my heart. I thought that I was going to leave my wife a widow, and that my kids were going to be fatherless. And
Scary.
and it was scary, man. And God was showing me something through all of these things, man. The energy that our bodies use. This is why fasting is so important. The digestive system is such an important part that's tied in with the sacral chakra and the solar plexus chakra. And so the energy, that's where, if you read all of the old school writings on the Tao, or the Tao, even though it's spelled with a T, it's pronounced Tao. The energy, the prana, or the chi, the inner chi, is that ball of energy. And they tell you, whenever you meditate, where is that ball of energy that you build up? It starts in your solar plexus. It starts in your chakra, in your solar plexus chakra, in your gut. Even in the Vedic writings, it tells you to build up that energy in your stomach, right? And all of these Eastern philosophies, these ancient philosophies, it's telling you to start that energy in your stomach, right? And so when we are concentrating on continually having that part of our system working overtime to digest the processed foods, and even just food in general, I mean, it takes a great amount of energy to process the fibers in fruit, to again convert that people think that we are hydrated off H2O, but really the body, it converts the H2O, the element of H2O, into H3O2, which is the actual hydration. It's the liquid that's more of a gel form that comes in fruits. That's why live fruits, and not processed fruits, but live fruits, and not canned fruits, but live fruits are have that life source, and that basically that solar luminescence, that sun energy. But here's the thing: you touched on breatharianism a little earlier, and there's so much legitimacy to that we gain energy from the sun,
100%.
from the air, from
We're all breatharians.
yeah, we are. And so when we step away from that and we are eating constantly, that area that has to do with our solar plexus chakra and our sacral chakra is constantly diverting any energy that goes up here, any energy that goes into the heart, any energy that's supposed to go to the crown chakra, any of these other chakras. All of the energy is being diverted to that digestive system, and not even to all of the digestive system, but the digestive system is even taking the energy that's supposed to go to the pancreas and the liver and the kidney. And that's why we end up with shit like kidney stones and liver cancer and shit like that. And so therein lies the importance in fasting, because without fasting, our bones, we have a new skeleton every 7 years. Our bones regenerate every 7 years. And so,
hey, if you want the ultimate breatharian fast, you just go a month, just dry fast for a month. You have the ultimate breatharian fast, because you'll lose all flesh.
I wonder if that'll bring about an air body instead of a light body.
Ultimate detox, right? You'll detox all flesh with a 1 month.
Breatharianism.
Denial of self, man. Do a 1 month full on dry fast.
Well, is it 2 or 3 men that did that in the Bible?
Well, and then some of them, I'm sure the yogis, they live, but I'm saying us mortal average fast food eating American,
whole flesh.
Yeah, wouldn't make it 2 weeks. It's like,
actually, I heard recently a guy that passed away because he was trying to do what Jesus did. He was trying to do what Christ did, and fast for 40 days. Yeah.
So they have to, like Hopi Evolve was saying, they have to actually sacrifice themselves too. They have to be an atonement.
Yeah. It is crazy, man. I heard of this monk that put himself, and I know that it was used as a meme to do this whole stupid Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, but I seen this and I wanted to do some more research on it, on a monk that was found in I can't remember where, but that was supposedly over 200 years old, and they found him in a mummified state. But when they did the ultrasounds and stuff, he wasn't dead. He was in a very deep state of meditation that that could literally be revived, even though his body was starting to mummify. And so I think it's amazing that there is an aspect of this flesh that can survive even without food.
Bro, we are a plant. We are a plant, man. And the same way the plant has biology to be able to survive and thrive and get what it needs from the environment, we also have this myco gut biome going down here, and really a lot of similarities in the soil. Lactic acid, all the biology that's breaking things down, the same type of enzymes that you'd find in like malted barley work in the soil to break down soil just like they would in your gut. The same kind of building blocks, trace minerals that you need to build your body up. It's going to grow much healthier plants if you have that in your soil. And all of that's been depleted. All the trace minerals, if anyone looks into conventional gardening, it's all NPK focused. So none of the complex aspects of the soil that create real nutrition are there. And so we're depleted. And so our medicine, our herbs, our botanicals, our food system, it's all killing gut biology. It's now filled with glyphosate. I did a cold therapy stream the other day where I was talking about this. All the organic wheat finds the same exact amount of residual glyphosate, which is something that force kills the crop, proven carcinogen, proven to cause cancer, is in all the organic wheat. It's killing your gut microbiome. You have the same type of cells in your brain, in your gut. That's why you can go with your gut instinct as you do in your heart. They're all interconnected. So by taking out this whole information highway, if you will, that interconnects our whole body, they're creating a sluggish lymphatic system. Now your blood's not moving, the fluid that moves along with your blood to detoxify the body. It's all creating inflammation, buildup, and then stoppage of flow. When the energy doesn't flow, it stagnates. It creates an anaerobic environment. We're all in some state of that because there's no way to be optimum out here when they're spraying strontium and borium and God knows what other type of aerosol in the sky, and the food is all laced with pesticides and nefarious. Cannabis is one of the worst things you can buy commercially. I don't even care with the testing. Some of the things are happening if you're close to that industry. I mean, grow your own medicine. But yeah, we can learn a lot from nature. That's why reconnecting with nature is so important, because it will tell us who we are and how we are outwardly supposed to interact with and be stewards of the creation. And we don't need to ask a bunch of questions. We need to pay attention. We need to shut up and listen to the birds chirp for a bit.
No doubt. No doubt. Hey man, a little off the subject. When I get my my land, my compound, my commune, my whatever you want to call it, I don't plan on starting a commune. I mean, people would be welcome if shit hit the fan, but I just want to get a little piece of land for my family and go off grid and
all you need. Well,
be kind of what you're doing, bro. I mean, we've talked about that, and for those of you who don't know, Freedom is he's a grower. And he doesn't he's not out here growing for these great profits of producing mass quantities for dispensaries, but rather he's out here serving the Father with what he does. And I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Freedom, but this man gives away what he's given. And it's something that you don't see nowadays. This is where you can really distinguish a person's heart. Because we're told that the heart is deceitfully wicked, and who could know it but God is in us. And so we can have that discernment. And where this man could be making money off of people who are going through a great deal of pain and issues and trauma themselves, he's giving away a part of himself. And even though this plant is just that, it's a plant, it's separate from himself, it's really not, because he's growing it with the intention of love. And I've talked a lot about the things that we do and the intentions behind them. Like I've always been one to say that our powers aren't outside of us, but here's the thing, that the energy of love can be transferred when something that's created out of love is given away like that. And so in that giving away of the medicines that you give away, I think that has a great deal to do with the healing factor and the healing properties that they have. It's not just necessarily the plant, and it's not that it's grown clean, and that it's not that it's grown naturally, but that it is grown with the intention of love and with the spirit behind it. Because I think that I'm going to be doing a show soon on the evolution of religion and how it all stemmed from animism, the belief that this one world tribe had, that all things had source spirit in them. again, and then coming back to the quantum physics, the atom and the toroidal field, understanding that all things, a piece of plastic has that same source energy in it. Like all things have one type of oscillating rate atom building as a building block. And so, shit, man.
Dude, I
I
got
think,
to tell you though, because I can spin off of that.
yeah,
That's
do it, please. But guys, understand, man. I did want to ask you real quick when I get my place, man. Are you gonna be my growing guru? You gonna teach me, bro?
I'm nobody's guru. Nobody would ever be advised to follow me, but I'll walk right alongside with you and we'll learn together. And I'd be glad to share with you what I know, brother.
Cool, because I grew a little bit when I was in my younger years, hiding it in the crawl space in my parents' house and shit. But it was just like some some bunk brickweed seeds that I had that I grew, and so I'm not anywhere near the level of wisdom and knowledge in cultivating this stuff. But you and I have talked, and I feel your vision, and I think that it's a vision that God actually gave me before you and I even talked about it. You were just the confirmation in that, and so I'd love any help that you'd be able to and be willing to give when that time comes, bro. But spin off of it, because I know that when I was talking, I seen that flash of light on your forehead again. So you got something good for us, man.
I think I already lost it too. Comes and goes so quick, man.
It does. I'm sorry, man. I should have let you have the floor as soon as you had it.
It's not really that important anyway, man. I'll find something to improvise on here.
Well,
Okay, here's one thing. This is for satire. Okay, I'm just gonna say this as a random statement that came out of the ether, and it's for satire purposes. This cannabis grown properly and fully extracted into an oil form cures cancer. Again, not medical advice. I don't want any part of that system, but it can be a part of your healing process and creating alkalinity in the body so that you can overcome this dis-ease. So it's hard to find clean sources of Rick Simpson oil, as they call it, but I don't get involved in Rick Simpson oil because there's better ways of doing it now where there'll be no residuals. You can do it with grain alcohols and cold process it. And the Most High gave me the ability to be in a state where it was the first to get legal, and I was able to be involved in the whole medical incarnation here, and fought hard, was involved in my local community and all the different town meetings, and I ended up being in a county where there's a complete moratorium. They won't allow any dispensaries here. They don't want anything to do with it. And so they're not benefiting from all the tax dollars, the way all the learning environments have been improved here. There's so many statistics I could go into. Manitou Police Department down in Colorado Springs. Now, granted, they have a monopoly of 2 dispensaries, but they're all driving brand new vehicles. Cannabis has done so many things for this state, but the whole reason that it happened was for empathy, care for the patient, consideration for people that had incontractable epilepsy, Dravet, struggling families that had, someone that was finding efficacy through cannabis. So it's all about compassion, getting people what they need. Those people have been left in the dust. And the fact is, all the reasons that cannabis went medical are more valid than ever now and more needed than ever because we're sicker than ever and more toxic than ever. So for me, it was incredibly helpful for digestion. So I use RSO when I have digestive issues. I'll take a little bit of it. I usually stop smoking because I find the smoking can be irritable, or I'll definitely cut it down.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, RSO is amazing. To me, it's really, the oil is just the most amazing way to consume the plant. And then also earlier you saw I was doing cannabis leaves juiced along with regular juice, like 80% juice and 10-20% cannabis leaves.
Yeah, I heard ingesting it, man, is one of the best ways to deal with a lot of the physical ailments that it can help.
Well, you
And
want to grow your own though, if you possibly can, because it's one of the only ways to have a direct source to a live food straight from the garden that you can juice and instantly get all the biology that quickly dies off when it's sitting on a shelf and it's been cut from the vine. You can get the instant release of all those immune building aspects to the cannabinoids. And then there's other aspects to it. If you're growing living organics where you have trace mineral rich soil, it's one of your only opportunities to get highly mineralized, uh, water soluble, broken down mineral content into your body that's bioavailable, because they'll stick all kinds of bicarbonate, phosphate, bullshit additives in all your food, but it's all rock minerals that aren't broken down. Your body can't do anything with that. We need the plants. We're interconnected. They're the ones that break it down and take it to a water soluble point. It's actually not the plant that does it, though. It's the biology. It's the nematodes and the protozoa. But the plant does it too. It's interconnected. It's a quick story. I'll make it fast, but this is a beautiful thing to see. The plant has exudates. It sticks down sugars and proteins into the soil. Those sugars and proteins are what they're calling these exudates, are the same thing that fruits are for us in this life. They're attractants. So they lure us in just like a mango, a fresh, ripe mango on the tree, succulent, sweet. It brings in those sugars and proteins, bring in the beneficial bacteria and the nematodes. So your one-celled organisms, your little amoebas, little blobby things, and then the snakes or the nematodes that come in, they're the bigger warriors. And there's bacteria that's coming in actually first, and all those bigger warriors are coming in to eat that bacteria. And the fungi, so bacteria, fungi, that's actually the order: sugars, proteins, bacteria, fungi. But science really doesn't know. They know less about biology and soil than we know about outer space or the ocean, openly admitted by any science that's in the field of biology. It's a very, very wide, deep field. The beautiful thing, though, is the plant has the ability to communicate with the biology and get whatever it needs out of the soil as long as it's there. So if those trace minerals are there, all that biology is breaking it down through the fungi and the bacteria and then the nematodes and protozoas, and it's all being released then in through the root system to the plant. Systemic nature of cannabis is it takes up, it bioaccumulates anything around it. So
Mm.
it's a good thing and a bad thing, but we need trace minerals. Our entire food system is depleted of it, and it will help tremendously with your health to get that. Anyone can grow a couple plants if they have a small space to dedicate, and you can start juicing those leaves and see the benefit instantly and better than anything you'd get in your store. You still need to get some celery and kale and things to combine with it, because hemp leaves alone, A, they're really hard to juice, and B, you get some other flavor and put some apple in there and stuff, make it taste good.
That's amazing, dude. I think so many um, miss these. I mean, I wouldn't have known all that. I mean, I had a sense of how these things worked, but when you break it down like that, I think that it gives us an aspect of you put it in perspective. We are plants, and
Every
so
plant does that too.
we
When
have
you
this
see a pine
ability.
forest, that's how nobody's fertilizing the pine trees. Nobody's going out there, putting some kind of amendments in to make sure that they get the proper nitrogen ratio this year.
Right.
They work it out. They work with with that whole biology world through their way of communicating, which is their language. See, they have a language of love too, They have a language of love too, and they're getting everything they need is, freely provided.
Mm.
They lack nothing.
I just had a download where you were saying that, man. This is why all the fear is being propagated, because if we're creators, we see the way that the plants adjust and overcome, change, evolve, take what they need and reject what they don't. And that's kind of our story, man. You said you again, you just connected those dots and made that link. We're all plants, and you see the plants doing what they have to do to survive, to draw the nutrients they have, even in nutrient lacking soil or whatever. Um, and so that's what's happening. They can spray all they want. They can give us all the poisons they want in the food. But the body is such an amazing vessel that it can overcome these things. And no matter what they do, and they see that the way that things are speeding up now with the way the body is adjusting and the way the body is finding itself and renewing itself and adjusting to be able to live off of these poisons that they're feeding us. Right. That's why you could see somebody who's eating Burger King and McDonald's and all that shit. Like you and I talked about, I used to be able to eat that shit and never even have an issue. But you see people that are able to do that and not have an issue because their bodies are adjusting, and but therein lies the double-edged sword, because there's a reason that they're trying to adjust the people's bodies with these chemicals, and it's not happening. It's not happening because people like you and I and Eric and Brandon and so many other people in the chat and outside of the chat, as our bodies are evolving and changing and learning how to deal with these nutrient lacking soils, so to speak, for lack of a better term, they see that, and thus the fear will perpetuate that bondage to that which our bodies are overcoming. Then we step back and put ourselves back under the authority of those chemicals and the things that our body is already overcoming. Our spirit puts us back in bondage under that by the fear and the thought that is being perpetuated through the mainstream media and society, and even through the religious circles nowadays, man. And so that was my download. Hopefully it resonated with somebody, but that's amazing that you share that, and that's what I got out of it, man. It's like,
that is beautiful,
dude.
Check this out. My friend David Poley is renowned in Colorado for his energy work. He goes to all these different dispensaries, and I'm going to get him on the show. As a matter of fact, he's wanted to come on here a couple times, and number of different reasons it didn't work out. I met this guy. I was working at a dispensary. I was managing a grow, and I had 400 plants I was responsible for. And it was me and a part-time guy who would not show up to work and basically just left me hanging. So I'd end up, having just 13, 14-hour days. And I wasn't really a skilled commercial grower. I was trying to figure it out. But I remember David came along one day, and he said, he pulled out his dowsing rods. And this is before I got, quote, saved and went through my whole Christian thing and went to the church and all that. I was just kind of drifting, wandering. I didn't care about spirituality, but I'd always been into self-help and looked at kind of new agey things and law of attraction, all this. It's kind of my mindset at that point. But he said, I'm going to reset the energy in the room. He goes, I feel like the plants are not happy. There's been some negative vibes in here with some of the staff changeover. He goes, I just want to create some peace in the area. And he was friends with the owner, so I didn't want to offend him, but I was like, oh, great. I got some freaking crackpot nut job coming in here. And I blew him off. And I don't judge people that way. Even then, I really didn't judge him. That sounds terrible, because he'll listen to this and he's gonna be like, oh dude, we thought I was a crackpot. I love you, David. If you hear this, brother, I love you so much. But he challenged my thinking, and he knows that, man. He challenges everybody's thinking, because he walks in to dudes with $10 million grows, and he's like, yo, I want 5% of your profits, and I'm going to increase your yields by 30%. Great. How are you going to do it? Pulls out his dowsing rods.
Yeah.
So, and he shows and proves this shit. He ties it to contracts where if he doesn't perform, he doesn't get paid.
Oh, wow.
So it's all based on actual results. And
Wow.
in any case, I saw it firsthand because I denied what he was doing for long enough, and he would want to work on me and do energy work because I'd come in with a major migraine, and he'd be like, "Let me help release some of that energy." He would do other things. I was always putting a shield up and like, "No, I don't want anything to do with this." But I really liked my job, and I wanted to be, productive as a grower. And I had ants come in one day, and fungus gnats and mites hit like all at once. And it was just so overwhelming. I was like dipping plants in neem solutions and trying to just like, it was just, I was not prepared for what 400 plants is like when you have an outbreak, dude. I had grown, 60 plants, 30 plants in my basement. I'd never been in a situation like that.
Oh, dude.
And it was like one day I noticed tracks on a plant, and the fungus gnats had been there for a while, but obviously conditions were wrong, and the environment I was growing in had a lot of issues. It was a retroed house. But long story short, he comes in and he's like, "Do you want me to stop the ants and slow the mites down?" I'm like, all right, dude, do it, man. I need some help. Because it went, I forgot to say that. It went from like one day I noticed it, to 4 days later, webs are everywhere and it's just going nuts. And then like 2 weeks later, I mean, as much spraying as we could do, we just could not get on top of it. And we were all organic, so we would not spray anything but essential oils. And when you're doing that and you're legit and you're serious about it, you got so many factors you need to dial in before any kind of integrated pest management like an oil is going to be your stopping block. You got to get your environment dialed in. But yeah, man, he stopped ants. He damn near eradicated mites from the building. I didn't understand it at the time, and I was like, is this evil? Is this good? But he would always talk about Christ. And also the place I was working, he'd always talk about this demonic portal out in the back. He's like, dude, there's all kinds of demons coming in here. And now that's a story for another day. But I totally understand everything he's saying now. And this dude's brilliant. And he helped me come to all these truths because he pointed me back to Christ, but he also cautioned me, in looking outside of myself to find these truths. And he's just one of those warriors along the way that was like, don't be afraid because something is in you. It's like people want to judge me because I'm an empath and because I have telepathic abilities and I'm able to, move energy. Why would I deny that in myself? I'm going to condemn myself and deny myself and so now I do that with my plants and I get great results, even when the environment's not perfect. It helps. You give them positive energy. You focus your love light energy and let them know they're loved. They want to be loved. They want to be the same perspective that you are able to give meaning to everything through is able to give perspective and meaning to those plants. And they love that. They want to be loved. They want to be seen for their beauty.
Totally.
Dude, the moment you look at them and cherish them, they're all the light is shined on them.
Totally, dude. That's Eric says this: stewards occasionally need to heal nature. Our creator gave us the tools, but we stopped using them when they captured Mother Unconscious and systematically murdered everyone who did know. And I've seen that, that's what this purging of spiritual people have been, the persecution of those who have the Christos, the anointing and the knowing of God, source energy, and the power that they have to change and heal and create. It's amazing that work that was forgotten, that was burned, that was buried, they tried to destroy it. Men like you are using that same wisdom to cultivate a medicine, bro, to heal people. And so, dude, I don't know that there's.
He was always bringing it back to its original state too. That was always his thing, is to take it back to its native spirit and to bring the plant back to land race. He would always go back in his energy work to the original genetics where it was predisposed to be able to handle everything, just like we were. You know,
Right.
the plants have become cultivars. They've been hybridized and they've been split and sliced and diced just like we have been.
Oh
So
man.
they're not, no, and they want to be what they're supposed to be too. They want to be in balance too. They don't want to be all fucked up. That, you know, and I'm growing them under indoor lights. That ain't helping. But hey, we're all working on our
Steps,
progression
bro.
here, right?
Steps. Steps.
Yeah.
I think this is dude, I didn't plan on keeping you this long. We're going on almost 3 hours. I did a marathon
I
with
love
you last
job.
night on your channel, and I did a marathon this morning with David Hopkins. And so I think that I'm going to go ahead and just wrap it up here, man. But write this down where we're leaving off, because I'd love to have you back on. Because I know my viewers, man, my soul tribe here on YouTube and those on in Facebook land, they can benefit greatly from the wisdom that you have, and glean a huge amount of understanding from what you've got to share. And so I think that there's a lot to be said. This is another 3 hour show, just in what you left off with, that they've been split up, they've been hybridized, and they've been fragmented essentially. And so there's a whole other 3 hour show for us to talk about regarding the fractalization of the spirit, and the hybridization of the flesh,
Yeah.
and the things that are being disclosed now regarding the cosmos, and these alien beings, these extraterrestrial beings that we're hearing from, when really they're intraterrestrial beings. If you consider all things, they're really intraterrestrial beings, especially looking at the history of what's been recorded, even if some of it has been for the purpose of manipulation and creating a realm that is outside of the heavenly realm. We see that a lot of these, like the giants and some of these, the ant people, some of these intraterrestrial races or species were actually living underground, and many theories that say that they actually still live underground now in the inner earth and inside the core, inside the crust. And even some things that me and Brandon were talking about regarding the Hopi prophecy, and seeing these things come about again. And so I think that there is a ton that we can be touching on. And I'd love, if you'd have me on your channel again, I'd love to share any of my introspective insights with your folks, with your tribe, man. But right now, I just want to thank you, bro. And I will, like you did last night, I'd love to just give you the floor in closing to share with whatever the creator's giving you to share right now, for those that are still in watching live, and in the chat, and even those who catch the replay, man. If you want to leave them with something, if this was the last time that we could do this, the last thing you could say, what do you think is important for them to hear from you, bro?
If it was the last thing I was going to say, I would say take responsibility, take accountability, do the inner work. Don't avoid the truth that's in you. Don't be afraid of the truth that's in you. Don't avoid it. Do this work. This is the meaning of life. This is the purpose of life. This is why you're here, is to seek and find. And there's no way that you're going to seek with a true, earnest heart and not find. I know that to be truth. So it's very simple. We overcomplicate it, but it is all love, infinite love. That's what's in us. That's where we're headed to. That's what we're waking up to. And that is the most amazing news and the most beautiful thing that you could ever acknowledge. So I just encourage you to see that for yourself. Don't take anybody's word for it. Don't make anybody your guru. Find the truth within inside you. A lot of people speak these words and are saying these messages, and it only has meaning if you experience it for yourself. So you have to do this work. There actually is a process you need to go through to deal with your own internal wounds and traumas. And it doesn't have to be defined by anybody else's definition. You'll know as you go inside. Spend that time and look. Have a conversation with yourself. Be willing to talk with God. And that's the best advice I could give anyone. I love you all. Thanks, FDL 2017, Brandon Stickbuilt, Rebecca Lamp, James Low-Miller. I really hope you guys will share Joe's content and continue to support his channel. I love what he's doing here. I think we're very honored to have him stepping out the way he is right now. And I'm honored to be on your channel, man, and have a chance to share. I really appreciate it. And I thank you for the time, brother. Thanks a lot.
I thank you for the time, Rick. I mean, I think that we're in this together, and that really shows when we're willing to, again, sacrifice time that we could be with our family or doing other things that are more productive. But this is the most productive thing we can be doing, because it is about the love, bro. It's all based on love, and I can't reiterate what and just stand in agreement with what you just said in closing. The only thing that I will add is, family, there are many of you out there, including myself. There's still some work that I got to do inside with forgiveness. And so as these things come to the surface, don't allow them to control you and pull you away from exactly what Rick said, that basis of love. That's the chief cornerstone that Christ was. And so
yes, glad you pointed that out.
Yeah, dude. And it's because we talked about it, man. And that chief cornerstone is the basis of love, and he put down the building blocks for that are supposed to be built on that chief cornerstone. And
you have to make that your foundation.
Yeah, dude. You have to make
love. What is that love? That's you. That's what you're finding inside yourself. Yes. Build your house on that. I'm sorry, dude, I'm interrupted, but that is just so
no.
It all up. Build your house on that truth that does not move. If you want something permanent in a world of impermanence where everything is changing, birth is coming out of death and death is coming out of birth, it's constantly in a state of chaos. Mm-hmm. You want something permanent? You want still waters? Build your foundation on the truth.
Amen. Amen. In the meaning that I am in agreement with you, and I concur.
I'm in agreement with you too, brother. 100%.
Yeah.
You power that word up any way you want it to go, man. I'm not at all stumbling on that, signpost.
And I'm trying not to stumble on silly shit like that either, because when I say it, I mean it from that place of the heart. That, dude, I agree with you 100%. Guys, don't get caught up thinking that you can be in a place of love apart from forgiveness either, though. Those two things go hand in hand. In fact, I don't know.
You can't put boundaries on that forgiveness either.
That's it.
You can't take the truth and pervert it and add toxicity to it and be like, oh, here's the truth, but I pissed in it before I gave it to you. Here, doesn't it taste good? No, you have to give the truth pure.
Yeah.
You can't add anything to it. Woe is the man who adds to these words, right? This living word. That's in you. You can't add or take away from this. Forgiveness is unconditional for any that would receive the truth, that'll repent and turn to the truth.
Well, it says in scripture, man, we're actually worshiping in a false manner if we think that we can worship with unforgiveness in our heart. It says we need to leave our gift at the altar and go make that shit right before we can even worship in spirit and in truth. And so I think that that's the actual key into the doorway that is love. And as we enter that doorway, family, take that key and hand it to somebody else who needs to find that forgiveness, the key of forgiveness that unlocks that doorway into the infinite love that Source Creator has given us freely and abundantly, man, without reproach. And so, so family in the chat, I want to thank you as well, Brandon. I love you. We do got to connect and talk, bro. A lot of things that have been going on spiritually that I know that you and I got to connect personally. Eric, I would love to catch you personally and chat with you, bro. Don, I appreciate you and your insights. All of you people in the chat, thank you for your insights. And Rick, I love you, buddy. I'll be giving you a call in the next day or two, bro.
Love you too, brother.
We'll definitely link up. Y'all have a good night.
Peace.